The foot in the door technique is a method used in persuasion. It works by first asking for something small. Once the person agrees, you follow up with a larger request. The goal is to get them to say yes to the second, bigger ask. This technique works because people want to appear consistent. When they say yes once, they are more likely to say yes again. Imagine a neighbor knocks on your door and asks you to sign a petition to keep the local park clean. It's a simple request. It only takes a few seconds. Most people agree. Then, a week later, the same neighbor returns. This time, they ask if you can join a weekend cleanup effort. You remember signing the petition. You already showed support. Now, saying no feels like going back on that. So, you say yes. That's the foot in the door in action. It doesn't only work in neighborhood settings. It happens in sales, public service, health campaigns, and even parenting. A child might ask if they can watch one episode of a show. You say yes. Later, they ask to watch a movie. You hesitate, but you gave permission earlier. The small ask paved the way. This technique can also be seen in workplaces. A manager might ask an employee to take on a small task outside their role. After the employee agrees and completes it, the manager asks for more. The employee may feel pressure to agree again, even if the next task is bigger. Their past behavior makes them more likely to comply. In experiments, this effect has shown up repeatedly. Researchers once asked homeowners to place a small sticker in their window supporting safe driving. 2 weeks later, those who said yes were far more likely to allow a large, ugly sign on their lawn, promoting the same cause. Those who never got the sticker request were much less likely to agree to the big sign. The power of the technique lies in commitment. People see themselves as someone who helps, supports, or agrees. Once they make a choice, they feel a need to stick with it. They align their actions with their self-image. This makes them more likely to agree to bigger demands. It's not always about tricking someone. Often, it's about making the path to agreement easier. A nonprofit group might first ask someone to like their social media page. Later, they ask for a donation. The first action is low effort. It shows support. The second is a bigger step, but one that feels in line with what the person has already done. Consider a health campaign. First, they ask people to sign a pledge to eat more vegetables, a simple promise. Later, they invite them to join a 30-day healthy eating challenge. Those who made the pledge feel committed. They see themselves as someone who values healthy habits. They're more likely to join the challenge. The same approach can be used in education. A teacher might ask students to write down one goal for the semester. Later, the teacher asks them to join an after-school study group. Students who wrote a goal are more likely to agree. They already made a small commitment to doing well. Even digital platforms use this. A website might ask you to start a free trial. That's a small yes. Later, they ask you to upgrade to a paid version. If you liked the free part and you've already taken that first step, it's easier to keep going. You're more likely to say yes again. The technique is not magic. It doesn't work every time. It relies on timing, context, and the relationship between the two asks. If the second request is too big, or if it feels unrelated to the first, the effect breaks down. The person may feel manipulated. The link between the two requests has to be clear. For example, it wouldn't work if you asked someone to sign a pet adoption pledge, then later asked them to donate to a forest conservation group. The connection is too weak. But if the second request is to foster a dog, the chain holds. Both relate to animal welfare. The person's first yes supports the second. The requests should grow in scale but stay in the same theme. They should match the values expressed in the first agreement. The person must feel that their second choice is a natural follow-up, not a shift in direction. It's also important to make the first request easy. If it feels hard or time-consuming, people may say no. And if they say no once, they're less likely to say yes later. The whole process depends on getting that first yes. That's the entry point. A common use of this method shows up in politics. Campaigners might ask you to wear a button. Later, they ask if you'll volunteer for an event. The small act of support leads to a bigger one. You start by showing mild agreement, then get drawn into greater involvement. You can also use this in personal life. Suppose you want help moving. You might start by asking a friend if they can spare some boxes. That's a small, easy task. Then, once they agree, you ask if they can help carry things on moving day. Because they helped before, they're more likely to agree again. Parents may do something similar. They might ask a child to tidy just one part of their room. Later, they ask them to clean the whole space. The child may feel that since they already started, finishing makes sense. It's effective because it lowers resistance. People often resist big asks out of fear, doubt, or inconvenience. But once they say yes to a small ask, it breaks that resistance. The wall comes down. The next step feels more reasonable. In fundraising, this shows up as a small, one-time gift request. A group might ask for $1 to support a cause. Later, they ask for a monthly contribution. That $1 builds a bridge. It shows interest. It becomes a reason to give more. Marketers also use this with free samples. If someone tries a product and likes it, they're more likely to buy. The sample is the small request. The sale is the larger one. The first yes, even silent or informal, can open the door to more. This works because behavior shapes beliefs. When people act a certain way, they start to believe in that action. They see themselves as helpful, supportive, or consistent. That self-view makes them keep saying yes. One action becomes a pattern. So, the foot in the door technique doesn't rely on pressure or loud tactics. It's quiet. It builds on behavior and consistency. One yes, followed by another. Over time, small steps lead to big outcomes. The door in the face technique works by making a large request first, one that is likely to be rejected. After that, you make a second, smaller request. Because the first request was so big, the second one seems more reasonable. People are more likely to agree to the smaller request after turning down the large one. This strategy plays on the principle of reciprocity. When someone turns down a large request and is then offered a smaller one, they may feel like the person making the request has made a concession. In return, they feel pressure to also concede by agreeing to the smaller ask. Picture a teenager asking their parent for $200 to go on a weekend trip. The parent says no. Then the teen asks for $30 to go to the movies with friends. The second request seems minor in comparison to the first one. The parent, feeling a bit of guilt or relief, agrees to the smaller amount. The teen likely only wanted the movie money in the first place. The first request was never expected to work. Salespeople use this often. A furniture store clerk might show a customer a couch that costs $5,000. The customer says it's too much. Then, the clerk shows one for $2,000. That second couch might still be more than the person wanted to spend, but now it feels like a better deal. Compared to the first one, it seems affordable. The customer may agree even though the second couch would have felt expensive on its own. This method doesn't work because the second ask is smaller. It works because the first ask sets a high reference point. That anchor shapes how the second request feels. It changes the frame of the decision. People judge value and effort in relative terms. The second option feels fair after rejecting something much harder or more expensive. Researchers tested this idea by asking people to volunteer. In one study, participants were asked to commit 2 hours a week to help troubled youth for 2 years. Nearly everyone said no. Then they were asked to chaperone a single-day trip to the zoo. Many who said no to the long-term help agreed to the one-day request. Those who only got the zoo request without the bigger one first were much less likely to agree. The larger ask made the smaller ones seem easy. The technique taps into human social rules. When someone backs down from a big ask, it looks like they're compromising. People feel a subtle push to meet in the middle. They don't want to seem uncooperative. The smaller request feels like a fair place to land. This isn't just about tricking people. It's about how the human mind processes comparison and social pressure. It also works in fundraising. A charity might first ask you to donate $1,000. You say no. Then they ask for $50. That's a big drop, and it feels reasonable in contrast. You're more likely to say yes than if they had asked for $50 right away. The first ask sets a mental scale. The second one fits better because of it. You might see this in customer service. A hotel guest asks for a free extra night. The clerk says that's not possible. Then the guest asks for a late checkout. The staff is more likely to approve the smaller request. The first ask was rejected, but now the second one feels like a small favor. Parents may use it without realizing. A child asks to stay up until midnight. The parent says no. Then the child asks to stay up until 10. It feels like a fair compromise. The parent may agree, even though they would have said no to 10 if it were the first ask. Job seekers use this approach in salary negotiations. A candidate might first ask for a high salary, knowing it will be accepted. Then they ask for a more modest raise. The employer sees the second number as reasonable compared to the first. The candidate may land a better offer than if they started with their actual goal. It can also apply to chores. A roommate might ask you to deep clean the whole kitchen. You decline. Then they ask if you can just take out the trash. Compared to the first task, the trash feels easy. You agree. The key is the shift in contrast. The smaller request becomes acceptable because of what came before it. Not every situation is a good fit for this method. The first ask has to be big enough to be rejected, but not so extreme that it offends or angers the person. If the first request seems unreasonable or manipulative, the whole interaction can fall apart. The person may not trust the second ask. They may walk away completely. The requests must also relate to each other. Asking someone to lend you a car, then asking for lunch money doesn't follow a clear path, but asking for a big favor, then a smaller related one, keeps the connection intact. The second request must feel like a real alternative, not a random fallback. For this to work well, timing matters. The second ask should come quickly after the first. If too much time passes, the contrast effect fades. The person may no longer feel like they're responding to a concession. The social pressure disappears. Keeping the requests close keeps the sense of negotiation alive. It's also important to seem sincere. If the person senses you're playing a trick, they'll resist. The method works best when the second request feels genuine. If people feel like the first ask was only made to be turned down, they may not play along. Even if they don't say it out loud, they may feel manipulated. That breaks trust and makes future requests harder. Nonprofits sometimes build this technique into their strategy. They might ask donors to become monthly sponsors. After a rejection, they ask for a one-time donation. This fallback still meets the goal of raising funds. The initial ask wasn't meant to succeed, but to make the second one land better. Online platforms might use a version of this as well. A website could ask you to sign up for a premium plan. If you say no, they offer a basic plan. The basic plan feels easier to accept now. The same offer might have felt too much if it were the first and only one. In classrooms, a teacher might ask students to complete an extra project. Students say it's too much. Then the teacher assigns a shorter task. Students may agree to the shorter one more readily. The first ask shaped how they saw the second one. The door-in-the-face technique doesn't require force. It uses structure and timing. It guides people by shifting their point of view. The first request opens a door, not for agreement, but for contrast. The second request steps through. The illusory truth effect is a psychological phenomenon where people start to believe a false statement is true simply because they hear it repeatedly. It does not matter if the person knows the statement is false at first. Over time, with enough repetition, the false claim feels familiar. That familiarity creates a sense of truth. This effect has serious consequences, especially in areas like media, politics, advertising, and public health. Imagine someone hears that drinking 8 glasses of water a day is necessary for good health. They read it in an article, then see it on a poster at work, and later hear it from a friend. The claim starts to feel true, but medical experts say the body's water needs vary and there is no one-size-fits-all number. Still, the repeated message sticks. It feels right because it is familiar. This is how the mind works. When people see or hear information more than once, it becomes easier to process. That ease of processing is called fluency. The brain likes fluency. When a statement is easy to process, the brain treats it as more trustworthy. Repetition makes processing smoother, and smooth processing feels like a signal that something is true. But fluency is not accuracy. A statement can be fluent and still false. Consider how this plays out in politics. A leader might repeat the same misleading claim in speeches, ads, and interviews. Supporters hear it again and again. Even if the media fact-checks the statement and proves it false, the repetition keeps it alive. Over time, people who hear it often may start to accept it as fact. They may not remember the source, but they remember the message. The line between truth and fiction starts to blur. This effect has been tested in controlled studies. In one early experiment, participants read a list of trivia statements. Some were true, some false. A few weeks later, they saw a new list with a mix of old and new statements and had to decide which were true. People were more likely to say repeated statements were true, even the ones that had been false before. They didn't remember the details. They trusted the familiarity. The effect also works even when people are told the claim is false at first. Suppose a person hears, "The Great Wall of China is visible from space." They are told right away that this is incorrect. But if they see the same claim several more times over the next few weeks, they may forget that it was debunked. The familiarity grows stronger than the correction. This is part of why misinformation spreads so easily online. A false post about a vaccine, for example, may go viral. It gets shared, liked, and copied. Even after platforms remove it or flag it, the damage is done. People have seen the message. The repetition works its way in. The message becomes part of what they remember. Marketers sometimes take advantage of this effect. A brand might make a slogan with a claim that's not entirely accurate. Something like, "This cereal boosts brain power." That phrase gets used in ads, on boxes, and in social media posts. Even if the science behind it is weak, consumers who see it often enough may start to believe it. The company doesn't have to prove the claim in detail. Repetition does the heavy lifting. In casual conversations, this happens without planning. Someone hears a rumor and repeats it to a friend. The friend shares it with another person. No one checks the facts. The story spreads. With each retelling, the rumor feels more real. The original source fades away, and what remains is the repeated message. It doesn't need to be true. It just needs to be heard enough. Journalists and educators face a challenge here. When they correct false information, they often have to repeat the false claim first in order to explain why it's wrong. That repetition can backfire. People may remember the false part more than the correction. This is called the familiarity backfire effect. Saying it's not true that vaccines cause autism still repeats the core idea. For some, that may strengthen the false link. To work around this, experts suggest focusing on clear corrections without repeating the myth too often. Instead of saying what's false, they stress what's true. Instead of, "It's not true that you need 8 glasses of water a day," they say, your body needs water based on individual factors like activity and climate. The goal is to build new, accurate memories rather than reinforce false ones through repetition. Social media adds another layer. Algorithms often push content that gets engagement. That means a dramatic or shocking false claim may get more views than a slow, careful correction. If a false story gets repeated across posts and platforms, the illusory truth effect takes hold. Even careful users can fall for it. They may say, "I've heard that somewhere," and take that as a cue to trust it. This also affects collective memory. When entire groups of people are exposed to the same repeated messages, they may start to share the same false beliefs. These beliefs can shape voting behavior, public opinion, and policy support. If enough people believe a lie, it becomes hard to correct, not because it is strong, but because it is familiar. A good example comes from history textbooks. If a book repeatedly states that a war was fought for a certain reason, even if that reason is oversimplified or false, students may accept it as fact. Later corrections or deeper study may not stick as well. The first repeated message has more weight. Advertising jingles and slogans use this principle too. The line, "Milk does a body good," was never backed by clear evidence for everyone, but it ran for years in ad campaigns. People repeated it, it stuck. That kind of repetition shapes beliefs, especially when no one challenges the message often enough or clearly enough. Even self-talk can fall into this pattern. If someone keeps telling themselves they are bad at math, the message becomes familiar. The brain accepts it. The belief grows. It might not be true, but it feels true. That's how repetition works. It builds confidence in an idea, even when the facts don't support it. The illusory truth effect does not depend on intelligence. Smart people can fall for it. It's not about logic. It's about the way human memory works. Familiar things feel safe and right. The more we hear something, the more likely we are to think it's correct. This is why it's so important to be aware of the messages we repeat and share. The effect highlights a simple truth about the human mind. What is easy to remember can feel like what is true. Repetition smooths the edges of doubt. It can take a weak message and make it feel strong. It can take a lie and give it the weight of truth. And once a lie feels true, it's hard to unlearn. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where one person causes another to doubt their memory, judgment, or sense of reality. It happens over time. The manipulator uses denial, contradiction, and false information to confuse the victim. The goal is to gain control by making the victim unsure of what's real and what's not. This kind of behavior often starts small. The manipulator may deny things that happened. They may say, "That never happened," even when the event clearly took place. The victim might protest at first, but if this keeps happening, they begin to second-guess themselves. Over time, the victim's confidence weakens. They may begin to rely on the manipulator for what is true and what is not. Picture a couple where one partner moves objects around the house and then denies doing it. The other partner notices something missing or out of place. When they bring it up, they hear, "You're being paranoid," or "You probably just forgot." At first, the victim may brush it off, but if it keeps happening, they might believe it's their fault. They stop trusting their own memory. Gaslighting can happen in many types of relationships: romantic, family, work, or friendship. A boss might say, "I never told you to do that," even though they did. If an employee hears this enough, they may feel confused and insecure. They start to think they misunderstood or imagined things. That confusion makes them easier to control. In families, a parent might insist a child misremembers events. If a child recalls being hurt or ignored, and the parent denies it forcefully, the child may believe they're wrong. This shapes how the child sees themselves and others. They may grow up doubting their instincts. Gaslighting doesn't require shouting or threats. In fact, it often looks calm on the surface. the manipulator might seem caring or concerned. They might say things like, "You know, I only want what's best for you," or "You're just tired, that's why you're confused." These statements seem gentle but serve to undercut the victim's ability to trust their own thoughts. One of the most damaging parts of gaslighting is how it isolates the victim. As they lose trust in their memory and perception, they may withdraw from others. They fear sounding irrational or emotional. They may stop asking for help. This gives the manipulator more control. A common tactic in gaslighting is rewriting history. The manipulator might say something didn't happen or that it happened differently. They may insist, "You always overreact," or "You're too sensitive." These phrases shift blame and make the victim feel at fault. After hearing these lines many times, the victim may stop challenging them. They assume they are the problem. Gaslighting often escalates. It might start with denying one event or one feeling, but over time, it affects many parts of life. The victim starts to rely on the manipulator to explain things. They lose confidence in their ability to make decisions. They second-guess their emotions. The manipulator becomes the authority on what is real and what is not. In work settings, this can take the form of constant blame shifting. A manager might say a project failed because the employee didn't follow instructions, but those instructions were never clear or they were changed without notice. When the employee raises this, the manager says, "You misunderstood," or "You're imagining problems." Over time, the employee stops trusting their professional judgment. Friends can also gaslight. If one friend always twists stories and then says, "You're remembering it wrong," or "You can't take a joke," it chips away at the other friend's sense of clarity. It creates a pattern where the friend being gaslit doubts their reactions and avoids speaking up. In romantic relationships, gaslighting is often tied to control. One partner may accuse the other of being irrational, jealous, or forgetful. The gaslighter uses this to avoid accountability. If they stay out late and their partner asks about it, they might say, "You're imagining things," or "You always get like this for no reason." These responses don't address the concern. Instead, they shift focus to the victim's supposed flaws. This dynamic is powerful because it doesn't rely on force. It works through repetition and confusion. The victim often doesn't realize what's happening. They may feel something is wrong, but struggle to explain it. If they try to speak up, the manipulator accuses them of being dramatic or unstable. This creates more self-doubt. Sometimes, the manipulator brings in outside support. They may tell others that the victim is forgetful or overly emotional. This makes the victim feel even more isolated. When they try to talk about the manipulation, people may not believe them. They may hear, "That doesn't sound like something they would do," or "Are you sure you're not overreacting?" This response strengthens the gaslighter's position and deepens the victim's confusion. Gaslighting can also be tied to cultural or societal systems. For example, someone might report discrimination and be told, "You're imagining it," or "That's not what happened." These responses make people doubt their own experiences. It causes real harm, even if the gaslighting is subtle. Over time, people who are gaslit may develop anxiety, depression, or low self-worth. They may feel like they're losing control of their lives. They may stop trusting themselves or feel ashamed for being so confused. This is not because they are weak. It's because the manipulation works slowly and targets their sense of reality. It's important to recognize the signs. When someone often makes you feel unsure about things you know happened, or they frequently dismiss your feelings as overreactions, it may be gaslighting. If you find yourself apologizing constantly or asking others to confirm your version of events, that's another red flag. The language of gaslighting is often predictable. It includes statements like, "That never happened," "You're too emotional," "You're just imagining things," or "You're not remembering that right." Each of these phrases can be part of normal disagreement, but when they form a pattern aimed at making someone feel unstable, they become part of gaslighting. Gaslighting thrives in silence. It relies on the victim staying quiet, questioning themselves, and avoiding confrontation. It also survives when others dismiss or ignore the signs. That's why understanding the behavior is important. Once someone sees the pattern, they can begin to challenge it. The first step is often the hardest, believing that what you experienced is real, even when someone insists it's not. Mirroring is a social practice where one person reflects another's behavior to create a feeling of closeness and understanding. It appears in small ways, such as matching posture, echoing word choice, or aligning speech rate. Though it often happens without thought, skilled communicators use it on purpose to build trust. The mind reads similarity as safety. When two bodies move in sync, or when two voices share a rhythm, each person feels that the other is like them. That sense of likeness lowers guard and opens space for open talk. Imagine meeting a new coworker at a project kickoff. She leans back, rests one ankle on a knee, and speaks in short, direct phrases. If you sit rigid, fold hands tight, and give long explanations, you may look distant. Shift back, cross one foot at the ankle, and keep your sentences crisp. She now senses an unspoken bond. You do not copy every move. A light echo is enough to trigger the link. Mirroring also helps in high-stress talks. A police negotiator may soften a tense suspect by repeating the last few words the suspect says. Suspect, I can't trust anyone. Negotiator, you can't trust anyone. That brief reflection confirms the feeling without judgment. The suspect hears their own words returned and feels heard. Trust inches forward. In therapy, a counselor may nod and match the client's tempo, prompting deeper sharing. The technique rests on a brain system called mirror neurons. These cells fire when we move, and also when we see another person make the same move. They prepare us to copy and to feel what the other feels. When two people mirror each other, their nervous systems align. Heart rates and breathing patterns can even sync. That body harmony lays a base for mental rapport. Sales professionals learn mirroring early. A customer browses at an easy pace and speaks in a soft tone. If the salesperson strides up with a booming voice, the customer feels pushed. A better approach is to stroll at the same speed, greet in a similar volume, and reuse the customer's key phrases. Customer, I'm after a sturdy pack for long treks. Salesperson, a sturdy pack for long treks. Let's look at models built for rough trails. This new repeat signals attention without flattery. Mirroring is not mimicry or mockery if the copy is too exact or too fast. The other person senses a fake note. Think of a dance where one partner leads with subtle cues and the other follows half a beat later. A slight delay keeps the exchange natural. Good mirroring feels like a dance in slow time. In hiring interviews, candidates mirror to gain an edge. Suppose the interviewer taps a pen, then pauses. After a moment, the candidate lifts a pen and holds it still, matching object focus without copying the tap. If the interviewer tilts forward to ask a question, the candidate leans in as well. These minor shifts show shared energy. The candidate can also reflect word choice. Interviewer, the role needs problem-solving grit. Candidate, I showed grit when our data system failed. Mirroring aids cross-cultural talks. When language barriers exist, body cues gain weight. A traveler can smile, bow a little if locals bow, and mirror hand gestures for numbers. This respectful echo bridges gaps and cuts conflict. Flight crews calm anxious passengers by matching breathing speed, then slowing their own breaths, guiding the passenger toward calm. Lawyers in mediation rooms use mirroring to read dynamics. If opposing counsel sits with arms open, matching that posture displays openness. If arms cross later, copying the shift highlights tension and invites a pause. Parents mirror children to foster safety. A child runs in with a new drawing, speaking in a high pitch. The parent kneels, raises pitch a bit, and repeats keywords. You drew a huge rocket. The child feels seen. As the child settles, the parent lowers voice, and the child often matches, easing into quiet focus. Teachers apply the same method in classrooms. There is risk if mirroring hides harmful intent. Confidence artists may mirror to gain trust before fraud. Ethical use requires respect and clear purpose. The practice should help both sides feel understood, not serve covert control. To learn mirroring, start with observation. Watch coworkers in casual talk. Notice how friends on a coffee break adopt similar slumps or head tilts. Pick one gesture to match, maybe the angle of a mug lift, then see if the other person relaxes further. Next, train your ear to catch exact phrases. In a meeting, someone says, "We need a lean workflow." You reply, "A lean workflow keeps our load light." Then pace your speech. If a listener speaks in measured beats, slow down by half a gear. Practice in safe settings first. Mirror a friend during a story, then ask if they felt listened to. Honest feedback sharpens timing. Aim for subtle moves. If you plan each motion, you may stiffen and lose flow. With habit, mirroring becomes automatic. Know when not to mirror. During a crisis where someone shows an aggressive stance, copying that stance can raise conflict. Use complementary moves instead. Adopt an open posture while keeping hands visible and calm. Mirroring does not replace judgment. It is one tool among many for skilled communication. Used with care, mirroring builds bridges across age, culture, and role. It signals that you are present and listening. Researchers have measured the effect in laboratory settings. In one study, waiters who repeated diners' orders earned higher tips than those who gave standard acknowledgments. The simple verbal mirror made guests feel attended to. Another experiment paired strangers in a planning task. Teens that mirrored reached agreement faster and rated each other as more trustworthy. Neural imaging work also shows that mirrored gestures light up reward circuits. These data points confirm that imitation, even in small doses, nurtures cooperation. Mirroring reshapes interaction through subtle signals for all. Negging is a form of social manipulation that involves giving someone a mild insult disguised as a compliment. The intent is to lower the other person's confidence, so they become more vulnerable to influence. The term gained attention through the so-called pickup artist community, where it was taught as a way to create attraction. The logic behind it is not based on respect or mutual interest. It relies on disrupting the target's sense of self-worth in order to gain control of the interaction. A typical example might sound like, "You're cute for someone who doesn't try too hard," or "I usually go for taller women, but you've got a nice vibe." These statements appear flattering at first glance, but they contain a subtle insult. The target may feel off balance. They hear a compliment, but something stings. That confusion is the point. The person delivering the neg wants to create doubt. If it works, the target may seek validation or approval, giving the negger the upper hand. Negging works by attacking self-esteem in a low-grade, indirect way. Instead of open criticism, the comment hides behind humor or teasing. This gives the speaker cover. If the person reacts negatively, they may hear, "Relax, it was just a joke," or "You're being too sensitive." These deflections serve to protect the manipulator and further undermine the target. The person begins to question their reaction. They may even blame themselves for feeling hurt. In practice, this tactic often shows up in dating settings. Someone meets a person they're attracted to, and instead of offering genuine conversation, they lead with a dig. For example, "That's a bold dress. You're not afraid of standing out, huh?" Or, "You're surprisingly smart for someone who talks so much." The goal is not connection, but disruption. If the other person starts to doubt themselves, they may lower their guard. They might try harder to impress, to fix the discomfort, or to gain approval from the person who caused it. Negging plays on social dynamics and the human desire to be accepted. When someone feels uncertain about how they're perceived, they may try to correct the imbalance. In a group setting, this may look like one person teasing another in a way that isn't quite friendly. If the rest of the group laughs, the target may feel pressure to play along, even if they're uncomfortable. Over time, repeated comments like these can wear down a person's confidence. In some cases, negging is not part of a conscious plan. People sometimes use these kinds of remarks without realizing the harm. They may have learned from peers or media that teasing builds attraction or makes them look confident. But intention doesn't erase impact. When someone regularly delivers comments that chip away at another person's self-esteem, the effect is still damaging. It shapes how the other person sees themselves and what they tolerate. Negging also occurs outside of dating. It shows up in offices, classrooms, families, and friendships. A manager might say, "You did a decent job on that, for once." A teacher might tell a student, "You're actually not bad at math today." A parent might joke, "That's the cleanest your room's been. Are you sick?" These remarks mix praise with a jab. They sound casual, but carry a message. Your usual effort isn't good enough, and even when you improve, it's a surprise. This kind of talk creates a pattern where people feel like they have to earn approval. They try harder, not because they want to grow, but because they want the negative tone to stop. That need for acceptance can lead to compliance, silence, or emotional dependence. When a person internalizes the message that they are not quite enough, they may become easier to control. Negging is often framed as playful banter, but the line between teasing and harm depends on intent, context, and impact. In healthy teasing, both people laugh and feel included. In negging, one person holds power and uses it to provoke insecurity. The target may not feel safe to respond or push back. They may fear being called dramatic or needy. That fear keeps them from setting boundaries. The impact of repeated negging is long-lasting. It can change how someone views themselves, even after the interaction ends. A person might replay the comment in their head, wondering if they were too sensitive or if there was truth in the insult. They might start to doubt their appearance, intelligence, or worth. When this happens often, the damage compounds. The person's inner voice begins to echo the negs, reinforcing low self-regard. Some people may use negging as a defense mechanism. They put others down to protect their own ego. They might feel insecure and use sarcasm to gain control in social settings. They may want to seem confident or funny, but their humor relies on putting others off balance. This does not excuse the behavior, but it explains why it continues. It offers a way to appear powerful without showing vulnerability. Recognizing negging starts with paying attention to how a comment makes you feel. If something sounds like a compliment but leaves you feeling small, question it. If someone regularly wraps insults in jokes, don't brush it off. Think about patterns. A one-time awkward comment is different from ongoing digs. Look for signs of imbalance. Who holds the power and who stays quiet? In group dynamics, it helps to notice who laughs and who doesn't. Often, others will pick up on the discomfort, even if no one speaks up. If a friend points out that someone is always joking at your expense, listen. An outside view can help you see what you've normalized. Responding to negging requires boundaries. That might mean calling out the behavior calmly, stepping away from the interaction, or simply refusing to engage. You don't have to debate or prove the harm. You only have to trust your response. If a comment feels off, that's enough. Trust your gut. You're allowed to walk away from people who make you feel less than. Negging depends on silence and doubt. It works when the target questions their worth and stays in the game to prove it. When people speak up, the spell breaks. A clear response, "That felt more like an insult than a compliment," can shift the tone. You don't need to convince the person who negged you. You just need to stand on your own truth. The idea that insults build attraction is based on flawed thinking. True connection grows from respect, not confusion. Confidence does not mean putting others down. People who rely on negging often fear genuine connection. They hide behind small jabs because they don't know how to be real. But real strength comes from treating others with care, not control. The scarcity principle is a tactic based on the idea that people place higher value on things that are limited. When something seems rare or about to run out, it becomes more attractive. The fear of missing out pushes people to act faster and with more urgency. This response is not always logical, It often bypasses careful thought and drives quick decisions. Imagine an online store that shows a banner saying, "Only 2 items left in stock." Even if the buyer wasn't planning to make a purchase that day, that message can trigger urgency. They start to think, if I wait, I'll lose the chance. The product hasn't changed, but the sense of rarity increases its appeal. The pressure to act comes not from desire, but from the threat of loss. Scarcity works in different forms. One way is by limiting quantity, such as only making a small number of a product. Another way is by limiting time, like offering a deal that expires in 24 hours. Both strategies play on the same instinct. People tend to assume that if something is scarce, it must be valuable. This idea runs deep in how people judge worth. Ticket sales often use the scarcity principle. A concert site might show a message saying, 5 tickets remaining at this price. Even if more tickets exist in a different section, that message causes people to rush. The price becomes part of the scarcity. Once those few tickets sell, the next tier may cost more. Buyers move fast, not because they've considered all options, but because they don't want to be left out. This also appears in travel booking platforms. A hotel site might display, "Only 1 room left at this rate." That message has a purpose. It urges the visitor to book now. The person may not have planned to finalize the booking yet, but the threat of loss creates urgency. They skip comparison shopping. They choose quickly. Limited editions rely on scarcity to shape demand. A shoe brand might release only 500 pairs of a design. The shoes sell out fast, not always because people love the design, but because they want what few others can have. Scarcity adds a layer of status. Owning something rare becomes part of the appeal. This also works in social settings. A person who is rarely available may seem more desirable as a friend or partner. Their time feels limited. People may try harder to earn it. The person hasn't changed, but their perceived value increases because access to them is limited. The same logic applies to job candidates. An applicant who mentions having other offers may seem like a better hire. The hiring manager feels pressure to act before the candidate is gone. In auctions, scarcity is built into the process. There is only one item, and once it sells, the chance is gone. Bidders don't just want the object, they want to win. The competition and limited supply push the price higher. The item becomes more desirable because others want it too, and because it won't be available again. Marketers use countdown timers to enhance scarcity. A website might show a clock ticking down to the end of a sale. Even if the product is always available, the time limit causes people to rush. The timer creates an emotional response. The mind focuses on the deadline, not the details. The person thinks less about whether they need the item and more about whether they'll lose the deal. Scarcity works because it connects to survival instincts. In the past, when food or resources were limited, acting fast meant survival. Those instincts still shape behavior, even in modern shopping or decision-making. When something is scarce, people assume others will want it too. That assumption increases pressure to act quickly before someone else gets it first. In real estate, agents might say, "This home has several interested buyers." Even if interest is average, the message adds urgency. A buyer might skip a second viewing or raise their offer. They act fast to avoid missing the chance. The fear of loss often outweighs the goal of making the best decision. The same principle applies in education and training. A course might say, "Only 20 spots available," or "This workshop will not be repeated." Even if more spots could open, those limits increase signups. People act not just because they want the training, but because they believe the chance won't come again. Restaurants use scarcity with menu items. A sign might read, "Limited time special." That dish may be no different from others, but the label makes it more appealing. Diners order it faster, thinking it may not be available next time. Even if the restaurant brings it back later, the limited window makes it feel more valuable now. Scarcity also affects opinions. A banned book often attracts more interest than one that's widely available. A restricted video gains more views after it's removed. When access to something is blocked, people want it more. The thing hasn't changed, but its value rises because it's harder to get. That's another side of the scarcity effect. This tactic works best when people believe the scarcity is real. If they find out the claim was false, if the item is always in stock, or the sale never ends, the strategy loses power. Trust erodes. People feel manipulated. For scarcity to work well over time, it must be credible. Some brands build lasting demand through real scarcity. A watchmaker might produce only 1,000 pieces a year. That's not a tactic. It's part of the business model. Customers learn to expect low supply and are willing to wait or pay more. In this case, scarcity builds not just urgency, but also long-term brand value. The scarcity principle doesn't always mean less is more. It means that when people think something is about to disappear, they want it more. That could be a product, a person's time, or an opportunity. The idea is the same. When choice feels limited, action increases. People move fast to avoid regret. The power lies not in the thing itself, but in how rare it seems. Pacing and leading is a communication method that builds agreement before introducing change. The idea is simple. Meet someone where they are, match their current state, then guide them toward a new direction. It works because people resist being pushed, but respond better when they feel understood first. Pacing involves reflecting the other person's reality. That includes what they see, hear, feel, or believe in the moment. By stating things that are clearly true from their point of view, you show alignment. You're not challenging them, correcting them, or trying to shift them right away. Instead, you match them. Once you build that match, you start leading. Leading introduces a new idea, emotion, or suggestion. The shift works best when it feels like a natural next step. If the person accepts the pacing, they are more likely to accept what comes after. Picture a teacher walking into a noisy classroom. If the teacher yells, "Be quiet," students may ignore it. But if the teacher says, "You've been talking with your friends, and it's hard to switch to work right away," that's pacing. Then they continue. Let's take 1 minute to settle our minds so we can get into today's topic. That's leading. The teacher acknowledges the current state and then suggests a new one. There's no fight. The shift feels smooth. A parent might use the same method with a tired child. The child is upset about brushing teeth. The parent says, "You're tired, and brushing your teeth feels like too much right now." That's pacing. Then, "Let's go together and finish fast so we can read your story." That's leading. The parent shows they understand, then gives a calm next step. It works because the child feels seen. In sales, pacing and leading can help avoid pushback. A customer walks into a store and says, "I'm just looking." The salesperson replies, "Sure, you want to take your time and see what stands out." That's pacing. Then, "If you have any questions about fit or features, I'm here to help." That's leading. The salesperson joins the customer's current mood, then opens a path forward. In therapy, pacing helps clients open up. A person might say, "Nothing is working, and I feel stuck." A good therapist doesn't rush to reframe. Instead, they say, "Right now, it feels like you've tried everything and nothing's changing." That's pacing. Then, and sometimes, even small steps forward start from a place like this. That's leading. The therapist joins the emotional state, then plants a new idea without pushing. This approach works in physical body language too. If someone is sitting back with arms crossed and you mirror that posture briefly, that's a kind of pacing. Once you shift to a more open posture and they follow, that's leading. People often sync with those they trust, and pacing builds that trust. The technique depends on timing and tone. If the pacing feels fake or rushed, it can backfire. For example, if someone is upset and you say, "I know how you feel," without showing real understanding, it won't land. Pacing must be grounded in truth. You reflect what you can observe or what the person says directly. You do not guess or assume too much. In workplace settings, this method builds cooperation. A team might resist a change in process. A manager says, "You've been doing this the same way for years, and it works for you." That's pacing. Then, this new system keeps what works, but adds speed in key places. That's leading. The shift is easier to accept because the team doesn't feel like they're being ignored. Pacing can also show up in writing or public speaking. A speaker might open with shared observations. You've had a long week. You've managed projects, dealt with clients, and now you're here. That's pacing. Then, so let's make this time useful and clear. That's leading. The speaker aligns with the audience's current frame, then points toward value. One common use of this method is the yes set. You start with statements the listener will agree with. For example, "You're here, you're reading this, and you want something to change." Each line builds a sense of agreement. That makes the next step easier to accept. Let's explore a simple shift in how you approach the situation. It works because agreement builds momentum. In conflict resolution, this tool can lower tension. Two coworkers disagree. One says, "We always do things your way." The other could reply, "It sounds like you felt overruled on decisions." That's pacing. Then, "Can we find one small place where your input leads this time?" That's leading. It gives space for the feeling without making it worse and offers a path to cooperation. The method can also help with motivation. A coach might say, "You're tired and progress feels slow." That's pacing. Then, "And showing up today, even tired, builds discipline." That's leading. The athlete hears both reality and forward movement. The coach doesn't deny the struggle, but also doesn't stop there. Pacing and leading work best when they stay simple. If the pacing feels forced or too polished, the other person may pull back. Keep the language plain. Use what the person says. Match tone and mood without overdoing it. Once you sense rapport, shift slightly. Offer a step, not a leap. It helps to think of pacing as building a bridge. Each true statement lays down one plank. The person walks with you, one step at a time. If you suddenly jump ahead, the bridge ends and they stop. But if you move slowly and clearly, they follow. Not all pacing leads to agreement. Sometimes the person stays where they are. That's okay. Pacing still builds trust. Even if they don't shift, they feel heard. And often, people are more open to influence later if they didn't feel forced early on. In group settings, this approach keeps energy smooth. A facilitator starts by naming the mood. You've just come from another meeting, and your minds are still there. That's pacing. Then, take one breath and turn your focus here, so we can make the most of this hour. That's leading. The group transitions without being jolted. When used with care, pacing and leading help guide people through resistance, confusion, or doubt. It builds change not through pressure, but through trust. The method invites movement by first standing still with the other person. You match their step, then invite the next. That's how change begins, one small agreement at a time. The Benjamin Franklin effect is the idea that if you ask someone to do a favor for you, they will end up liking you more. At first glance, it seems backwards. People usually think that doing favors for someone else will make that person like them. But Franklin noticed the opposite was also true. When someone does you a favor, they justify it by telling themselves they like you. This makes their feelings warmer and more positive toward you. Benjamin Franklin discovered this when he faced tension with a political rival. Franklin wanted this man on his side, but knew he didn't have his favor. So Franklin came up with a simple plan. He asked the rival if he could borrow a rare book from the man's private library. The man agreed and lent Franklin the book. Franklin returned it soon afterward with a sincere thank you. From that point on, Franklin noticed the man's behavior toward him changed. The rival became friendly and helpful. They later became friends. This story illustrates how the Benjamin Franklin effect works. When someone does a favor for you, their brain looks for reasons why. The simplest reason is, I must like this person. People don't like to feel inconsistent. If they help you, but don't actually like you, their actions and feelings clash. To resolve this inner conflict, they adjust their feelings to match their actions. By doing you a favor, they convince themselves they care about you. The effect appears frequently in everyday situations. For example, imagine starting a new job and noticing a colleague who seems distant or unfriendly. Instead of trying to win them over by doing favors for them, you could ask for a small favor yourself. Perhaps you need help finding an office supply or advice about navigating company policies. Even though the request is minor, your coworker's action creates a feeling of closeness. After helping you, their attitude begins to soften. The Benjamin Franklin effect can be useful in personal relationships too. Suppose you have a neighbor who seems reserved and rarely speaks. If you ask them to do a small favor, like borrowing their ladder for a weekend project, it creates a subtle shift. After the neighbor agrees and helps, they begin to feel more positively about you. The act of kindness becomes a reason for them to see you as someone worth helping again in the future. In sales or business situations, this principle works well. For example, imagine trying to build a relationship with a potential client. Instead of just offering help or services, you might ask them for something small, perhaps feedback or advice on an idea you're exploring. The request makes them invest effort into you. They become more likely to see you as someone they value, creating openness for future conversations. Another scenario occurs in classrooms. A student struggling to connect with a teacher can try asking the teacher for a favor. It might be as simple as requesting a book recommendation or guidance on an assignment. Once the teacher helps the student, the relationship changes. The teacher sees themselves as someone who cares about this student, deepening the connection. The Benjamin Franklin effect relies on cognitive dissonance, a psychological term meaning internal conflict caused by holding two opposite thoughts at once. People prefer harmony and consistency in their thinking. If someone performs a favor for you but doesn't like you, their brain faces a contradiction. To resolve it, their feelings shift. They begin to like you more. For the effect to work, the favor must be reasonable and genuine. Asking for something too large or intrusive can backfire. It might annoy or alienate the other person instead. The favor needs to feel comfortable and natural. It should be something the person can easily say yes to without hesitation or discomfort. Timing also matters. Asking for favors early in a relationship often works best. Once a pattern of distance or dislike becomes deeply established, the Benjamin Franklin effect might not be enough. Small early favors create positive momentum. They build the foundation of a friendly relationship. Politicians often use this method. For instance, asking voters for small favors, such as signing a petition or wearing a campaign button, can create stronger support. After doing these favors, voters feel invested. Their actions lead them to believe they genuinely support the candidate, strengthening loyalty. Social media creators apply this strategy too. They may ask followers for minor favors like comments, likes, or sharing content. When followers take these small actions, they feel closer to the creator. They justify their efforts by increasing their positive feelings. This builds a stronger bond between the creator and the audience. The effect also helps repair relationships after conflict. Imagine two friends have argued and feel distant. One friend reaches out and asks the other for a small favor, perhaps borrowing a book or getting advice on something trivial. When the second friend agrees and helps, they begin to feel warmer toward the first. Their action reminds them of their positive history, making it easier to move past the conflict. However, there is a caution. The Benjamin Franklin effect isn't about manipulation or trickery. It relies on sincere interactions. If the favor feels dishonest or contrived, people sense that something isn't right. The goal isn't to trick someone into liking you. Instead, it's about creating genuine opportunities for closeness and connection. A key to making this method effective is showing genuine gratitude. After someone does you a favor, it is essential to thank them sincerely. A heartfelt acknowledgement makes the other person feel valued. This reinforces their positive feelings and further solidifies the connection. Franklin himself returned the borrowed book with sincere thanks, which made the effect stronger. Interestingly, the reverse also applies. People often assume doing favors for others will make those people like them more. This can happen, but not always. Sometimes the person receiving the favor feels obligated or burdened. However, when someone voluntarily helps you, their effort makes them view you positively to justify their actions. Understanding the Benjamin Franklin effect can improve relationships, reduce conflict, and foster stronger social bonds. It turns the traditional notion that you must earn someone's liking through favors or actions on its head. Instead, it emphasizes the power of receiving favors graciously and authentically. This subtle shift in approach can lead to more positive and lasting connections with others. Priming is a psychological technique where subtle cues influence someone's thoughts or actions without their realizing it. These cues can be words, images, smells, sounds, or anything that triggers certain thoughts or feelings. Priming works because the brain constantly makes connections between ideas. When a person encounters a cue, their mind quietly prepares to act or think in a related way. Imagine walking into a store that smells strongly of fresh baked bread. Even if you didn't plan to buy bread, that scent primes hunger and warmth. You might end up buying more food, even items unrelated to bread. The smell activated thoughts about eating and comfort. Without consciously deciding, your actions shift to match the cue. Priming often appears in marketing. Stores use music to shape shoppers' moods. Slow, calm music encourages shoppers to spend more time browsing. Fast-paced music can lead customers to make quicker decisions or buy more impulsively. Customers rarely notice this influence. They simply respond naturally to the cues around them. Another example happens in advertising visuals. A clothing ad might show models smiling and enjoying a sunny day at the beach. Viewers see happiness, friendship, and relaxation. Later, when they see the clothing brand, those positive feelings return. The viewer associates the brand with joy and warmth, even if they never directly thought about it. That subtle influence guides their preference without conscious effort. Priming affects behavior in everyday situations too. For example, researchers found that people exposed to words related to aging, such as gray, wrinkle, or tired, walked more slowly afterward. These words triggered associations with older age. Participants didn't notice the connection, but their actions shifted slightly to match the cue. This shows how simple exposure to certain ideas quietly shapes behavior. Another study showed that holding a hot drink made people feel warmer towards strangers, while holding a cold drink made them less trusting. Participants had no idea the temperature affected their feelings. The physical sensation primed emotional responses. Their brains connected warmth with friendliness and coldness with distance. Priming also shapes judgments and decisions. Imagine reading about crime before deciding on a political candidate. Stories about increased crime rates might prime you to choose a candidate who emphasizes safety and security, even if crime isn't a top issue for you. The exposure to crime-related information quietly influences your decision-making. Similarly, language used in surveys or interviews can prime responses. Asking someone, "How satisfied are you with your life?" yields different answers than, "How unhappy are you with your life?" The words satisfied or unhappy prime participants to focus on specific feelings, altering their responses. The framing of the question shapes the answers subtly but powerfully. Priming also appears in workplace environments. If employees see motivational posters or slogans about teamwork, they might collaborate more effectively without noticing why. Conversely, exposure to competitive or aggressive images might increase tension among workers. These environmental cues shape behavior subtly but consistently. In education, teachers can prime students to perform better. Before an exam, mentioning successful past students or displaying posters with words like confidence, success, or achievement primes students' minds toward positive outcomes. A subtle encouragement helps improve performance without students consciously recognizing the influence. Restaurants also use priming to shape customer choices. Menu items labeled as chef's favorite or house specialty prime diners to select those dishes. Customers assume these items taste better or offer greater value because of the labels. Similarly, listing high-priced items first primes diners to view other menu options as affordable by comparison. Subtly influencing purchasing decisions. Priming can affect memory as well. When people hear or see certain words repeatedly, their brains become quicker to recall related ideas. For example, hearing words like doctor, nurse, and hospital primes you to recognize medical-related words more quickly afterward. This effect happens without any conscious effort to remember. Your brain naturally makes these connections. Social priming occurs when cues influence interactions between people. If someone sees images or words related to kindness or generosity, they might behave more helpfully afterward. For instance, seeing pictures of people cooperating primes observers to be cooperative themselves. People don't realize why they feel more inclined to help, but the exposure nudges their behavior gently in that direction. Cultural priming shows how cues related to identity can shape thoughts and actions. Reminding someone of their cultural background or values influences their behavior subtly. In one study, Asian American students performed better on math tests after being subtly reminded of their Asian heritage due to cultural associations with mathematical skill. The reminder was indirect, yet the effect was measurable. Priming also shapes emotional reactions. Watching a sad movie primes viewers to notice sadness around them afterward. They might interpret neutral facial expressions as sadder than they actually are. Their brains, still influenced by the movie, become sensitive to sadness cues. Similarly, exposure to anger-related content can prime people to interpret neutral interactions as aggressive or confrontational. Priming can even shape physical reactions. Athletes sometimes use mental imagery to prime their bodies for competition. Imagining success or visualizing correct movements primes their muscles and nervous systems, helping performance. Their bodies respond to the mental cues as if practicing physically. This subtle mental rehearsal leads to measurable improvement. Despite its effectiveness, priming has limits. Priming cues are strongest when they closely match the behavior or thought being influenced. For example, images of healthy food prime healthy eating better than unrelated positive images. Also, repeated exposure strengthens priming effects. Seeing the cue once may have minimal impact, while repeated exposure amplifies its influence. Priming's subtlety makes it powerful, yet hard to detect. People often resist direct attempts to influence their behavior, but rarely notice indirect priming. This makes priming effective in persuasion, advertising, education, and behavior change strategies. By gently shaping how people think, feel, or act, priming guides decisions without raising resistance. Understanding priming helps people recognize when their actions or judgments might be subtly influenced. Awareness alone doesn't fully stop priming, but it helps people make clearer, more intentional choices. When people recognize how cues influence them, they can choose their responses more carefully, rather than simply reacting unconsciously. Priming shows how subtle environmental cues quietly shape thoughts, emotions, and actions. By gently activating certain ideas or feelings, priming influences behavior without conscious awareness. From marketing to education, social interactions to personal decisions, Priming quietly guides people's choices every day. Anchoring bias occurs when people rely heavily on the first number they hear when making decisions. This first number, or anchor, becomes a reference point. Even if the initial anchor is too high or unrealistic, it influences how people judge every number that follows. Businesses and individuals often exploit anchoring to make offers or prices seem better than they really are. Imagine walking into a clothing store. You pick up a jacket and see the price tag reads, originally $300, now just $150. The number 300 immediately becomes your anchor. You don't think about whether 300 is a fair price or even realistic. Instead, your brain focuses on the difference between 300 and 150. The lower price feels like a bargain simply because it is lower than the anchor. Without realizing it, you feel relieved at not paying the original high price. Anchoring frequently happens in car sales. Suppose a customer visits a dealership to buy a new car. The salesperson might first mention a high figure, saying, typically, with all the options, people pay around $30,000. This initial price becomes the anchor. When the salesperson later says, but for you, we can offer it at $27,000, the lower number sounds like a deal. Even though $27,000 might still be above the customer's original budget, it seems affordable compared to the anchor. Real estate agents use anchoring when showing properties. If a buyer sets a budget of $200,000, the agent might first show them houses priced at $240,000. The buyer sees homes just outside their price range, setting their expectations higher. When the agent later presents a home for $215,000, the buyer feels it is reasonable, even though it is still above their original budget. Their judgment of value shifts because the higher-priced homes anchored their expectations upward. Anchoring bias also influences salary negotiations. Imagine a candidate who wants to earn $70,000 a year. If the employer opens negotiations by saying, the job usually pays around $60,000, the candidate's expectations drop. The candidate might feel awkward requesting $70,000 now. Instead, they might ask for $65,000. Even if they intended to earn more, the lower initial figure anchored their expectations and reduced their confidence in asking for what they really want. Auctioneers regularly use anchoring. At an auction, the auctioneer starts bidding high, perhaps saying, let's begin at $1,000. Immediately, the bidder's minds anchor on $1,000 as the item's potential value. If no one bids, the auctioneer drops the price slightly to $800. Now $800 feels like a good deal. Buyers quickly bid because they are influenced by the initial higher anchor. If the auction had begun at $500, buyers might hesitate to bid at $800, viewing it as expensive. The initial high anchor changes perception. Restaurants apply anchoring with menu design. The menu lists an expensive steak dinner priced at $55 at the top. Below that, other dishes priced around $35 or $40 now seem affordable. Customers do not question the fairness of those lower prices. Instead, their minds compare everything to the steak at $55. Even if the other meals would normally seem pricey, they now feel reasonable next to the high anchor. Anchoring bias happens naturally in everyday life as well. Suppose a family needs home repairs. The first contractor says the repairs will cost $10,000. Even if that estimate feels too high, it becomes the family's anchor. When a second contractor quotes $8,000, it sounds reasonable. The family may accept the second price without shopping further because it feels like a good deal compared to the original anchor. This bias also shows up in retail sales and discounts. Shoppers often see signs advertising items at 60% off. The anchor is the original price, often inflated. The shopper sees a sweater marked, originally $100, now just $40. Even if $40 is still expensive for the sweater, the shopper believes they're getting an incredible deal because of the anchor. The inflated original price changes how they perceive value. Anchoring does not only affect prices, It influences how people judge quantities or percentages as well. For example, a charity fundraiser might say, "Most people donate around $200. That statement anchors the listener's expectations. They might feel pressure to donate near that amount, even if it's more than they intended. If the fundraiser had said, "Most people give around $50, donations would likely be lower." The initial number sets the expectation. Understanding anchoring helps people avoid being influenced unknowingly. When faced with an initial number, question its validity. Is the number realistic? Who benefits from the anchor being high or low? Take a step back and consider what price or figure makes sense independent of the anchor. Anchors have less power when people recognize them. In negotiations, one way to reduce anchoring's influence is to set your own anchor first. If negotiating salary, state your desired number early, rather than allowing the other party to set the anchor. If shopping, decide beforehand what a reasonable price is and stick to it. Recognizing anchors makes people less susceptible to manipulation. Anchoring bias exploits human psychology. It taps into a natural tendency to use the first piece of information as a guide. Marketers, salespeople, negotiators, and others rely on anchoring to influence decisions subtly but powerfully. While anchoring can feel harmless, it quietly shapes choices about money, time, and resources in everyday life. Recognizing and questioning anchors can help individuals make more thoughtful, informed decisions, free from hidden influences. Cognitive dissonance is the discomfort people feel when their actions do not match their beliefs or values. Human minds naturally prefer consistency. When there is a mismatch, the mind seeks ways to resolve it, often by adjusting beliefs to justify actions already taken. When someone does something that conflicts with their beliefs, they face a choice: change the action, change the belief, or rationalize to reduce discomfort. Because actions already done cannot easily be undone, people usually change their beliefs instead. This tendency allows others to exploit cognitive dissonance by guiding someone into behaviors that conflict with their original beliefs, causing their beliefs to shift to match the behavior. Imagine someone who strongly believes in healthy eating. If they attend a gathering where unhealthy food is the only option and choose to eat it anyway, they experience cognitive dissonance. They might justify their behavior by shifting their beliefs slightly, thinking eating unhealthy occasionally isn't so bad. A small action leads to a shift in belief to ease the internal tension. Sales professionals frequently exploit cognitive dissonance. Consider someone shopping for a car. They initially intend to buy a practical, economical vehicle. However, a persuasive salesperson encourages them to test drive a luxury car they normally would never buy. After test driving and enjoying it, the customer feels internal conflict. Their action, test driving and enjoying a luxury vehicle, does not match their original intention. To resolve this discomfort, they may adjust their beliefs, convincing themselves the luxury car is practical enough or worth the extra money. Another example occurs in situations involving charity donations. Suppose someone is asked to make a small donation to a cause they don't fully support. They agree, perhaps out of politeness or pressure. After donating, the person may feel discomfort because their action doesn't match their original beliefs. To ease this, they might start believing the cause is worthwhile. Their behavior reshapes their thinking, making them more likely to donate again or support similar causes. In politics, cognitive dissonance exploitation is common. A voter who disagrees with certain policies might publicly support a candidate who promotes them, perhaps due to social pressure or a desire to fit in with friends. After publicly supporting the candidate, the voter experiences discomfort. They may gradually shift their beliefs, convincing themselves that the candidate's policies aren't so bad after all. Their actions create new beliefs to maintain consistency. Cults and controlling groups often exploit cognitive dissonance deliberately. New members might initially resist certain group rules or beliefs. However, group leaders ask them to perform small acts that contradict their original values. For example, they might be asked to distance themselves from friends or family. After following through, a member feels internal conflict. To relieve this tension, they start believing the group's explanation, that those outside relationships were harmful. Over time, this process deepens their commitment to the group. Work environments can also exploit cognitive dissonance. An employee who strongly values fairness and honesty might be asked by a supervisor to overlook unethical practices, even in small ways. Initially, the employee may feel uncomfortable. However, after repeatedly going along with the request, they start to justify it to themselves. They might think, "This is just how business works," or "It's not really harming anyone." Gradually, their beliefs shift, aligning with their actions, reducing internal conflict. Peer pressure among teenagers often uses cognitive dissonance exploitation. Suppose a teenager who believes strongly against underage drinking attends a party where everyone else drinks. Under pressure, they might take a small sip. Afterward, the teenager feels conflicted because their behavior contradicts their values. To relieve the discomfort, they adjust their beliefs, thinking a small amount of alcohol isn't really harmful. Their original belief weakens, making future drinking easier. Advertisers exploit cognitive dissonance by prompting consumers to take small actions that contradict their initial beliefs or attitudes. Imagine someone who dislikes fast food due to health concerns. An advertisement offers a free trial or coupon. They accept, rationalizing that it's free. After trying it, they might adjust their beliefs slightly, thinking, "This food tastes good. Maybe it's okay sometimes." Their behavior drives a shift in their original health-focused attitude. Recruiters for causes or organizations frequently leverage cognitive dissonance. They might ask individuals who initially oppose their cause to perform small, seemingly harmless actions, like wearing a pin or signing a petition. Once individuals do these small actions, their beliefs gradually adjust to match. They start viewing themselves as supporters of the cause. Their small initial action triggers an internal shift, eventually leading to stronger commitment. Educators sometimes use cognitive dissonance positively to encourage students. For instance, a teacher might challenge a student who believes they're bad at math to solve a simple math problem successfully. When the student completes it, they experience cognitive dissonance because their success conflicts with their belief of being poor at math. To reduce this discomfort, the student begins to believe they might be capable, gradually improving their confidence and performance. Relationships can also exploit cognitive dissonance. Consider a couple where one partner strongly values independence but is convinced by their partner to become increasingly dependent, accepting more help or favors than they're comfortable with. Initially, the dependent partner feels discomfort because their actions conflict with their independence. To reduce tension, they start adjusting their beliefs, thinking dependence might not be so negative after all. Over time, this leads to increased reliance, reducing their original sense of independence. Marketers exploit cognitive dissonance by persuading customers to publicly endorse or recommend products, even if customers initially have reservations. Suppose someone leaves a positive online review for a product after being politely asked by the company, despite not being fully satisfied. After submitting the review, they experience discomfort because their action doesn't match their true feelings. To resolve this tension, they convince themselves the product was indeed better than they initially thought. Their genuine opinion shifts to match their public endorsement. Exploiting cognitive dissonance hinges on getting someone to behave contrary to their beliefs, even slightly. Once this inconsistency occurs, individuals instinctively seek harmony between their actions and thoughts. Since changing past actions isn't possible, beliefs become flexible. People naturally justify their behaviors, gradually shifting their original attitudes to avoid discomfort. Recognizing cognitive dissonance helps people avoid unwanted shifts in beliefs. Awareness enables individuals to pause when facing decisions that feel uncomfortable or contradictory. By examining internal discomfort closely, people can consciously choose whether to change their actions or beliefs. This awareness provides protection against manipulation and preserves authentic values. Exploitation of cognitive dissonance relies on subtlety and persistence. Small initial actions, seemingly harmless or insignificant, gradually shape beliefs over time. Understanding this psychological dynamic empowers people to maintain control over their beliefs, decisions, and behaviors, reducing vulnerability to hidden influences. Fear appeal is a method of persuasion that uses fear to motivate people into action. It relies on creating anxiety or worry about possible negative outcomes, such as harm, loss, or failure. The goal is to push people into making decisions quickly to avoid those bad results. This approach often appears in advertising, public health campaigns, politics, and daily interactions. When people feel threatened, their instinct is to protect themselves. Fear appeals tap into that instinct and make people feel vulnerable, then offer a way to avoid or lessen the threat. The more urgent the threat feels, the faster people act. Imagine seeing a commercial about smoking. The ad shows images of damaged lungs or someone in the hospital, struggling to breathe. It might include statements like, "Smoking kills," or "You could lose years of your life." The intent is clear: create fear about serious health problems. Then the ad provides a solution. Stop smoking now. The fear drives people to consider quitting seriously. Another example happens during elections. Politicians often use fear to gain votes. A candidate might say, "If my opponent wins, crime will rise," or "Your jobs will disappear." Voters feel worried about safety or job security. To relieve that fear, they support the candidate promising protection. Fear makes the decision feel urgent. It pushes people to vote quickly, rather than carefully considering policies. Insurance companies regularly use fear appeal. They describe possible disasters like fires, floods, or car crashes. Advertisements might say, "Without coverage, you could lose everything." Fear makes people feel vulnerable. They think about losing their home, car, or savings. Insurance offers a sense of safety. By purchasing insurance, they reduce anxiety about potential losses. In health campaigns, fear appeals motivate behaviors like vaccination. Public health officials might describe the dangers of diseases clearly. For instance, an ad might say, "Without the flu shot, you risk serious illness." People become concerned about getting sick. Fear pushes them toward vaccination because it promises protection. Fear appeal also occurs in educational settings. Teachers might say, "If you don't study, you'll fail the class." Students fear the negative consequences, failure, disappointment, or embarrassment. Fear motivates them to study, even if reluctantly. Similarly, parents might warn children, "If you don't brush your teeth, you'll get cavities." Children fear dental pain, so they comply. Employers sometimes use fear appeals to increase productivity. A manager might say, "If we don't finish this project on time, we could lose the client." Employees worry about losing their jobs or facing criticism. This anxiety pushes them to work harder or faster to avoid the threat. In sales, fear appeals push customers toward quick purchases. A salesperson might say, "If you don't buy now, the price will increase tomorrow." Customers fear paying more later, so they buy immediately. Similarly, limited time offers create anxiety about missing opportunities. Statements like, "Offer expires at midnight," prompt people to buy out of fear of regret. Fear appeal works best when the threat seems realistic and immediate. For instance, Anti-drunk driving campaigns use graphic images or emotional stories. Ads might show car wrecks or grieving families. The message, "One drink can ruin lives," feels urgent and real. Viewers imagine the immediate consequences. This fear motivates them to avoid drinking and driving. However, fear appeals can backfire if threats feel exaggerated or unrealistic. If people think the risk is overstated, they ignore it. For example, a diet ad claiming, "Without our product, you'll never lose weight," sounds extreme. Consumers doubt such exaggerated claims. The fear appeal loses power because it doesn't seem credible. Fear appeal is more effective when paired with clear solutions. People need practical ways to reduce anxiety. For example, health campaigns about heart disease highlight risks clearly, saying, "Poor diet can lead to heart attacks," but they also provide simple advice: eat fruits and vegetables daily. The fear of disease motivates people, but clear guidance makes action possible. Fear appeals must also match the audience's ability to respond. If people feel unable to reduce the threat, they might feel hopeless instead of motivated. For instance, messages about climate change can feel overwhelming. Simply stating, "Climate change threatens our survival," without offering practical solutions, leaves people feeling helpless. Adding clear steps, like reduce plastic use and recycle, makes the fear manageable and actionable. Fear appeals often work through vivid imagery or storytelling. Seeing pictures or hearing real stories triggers strong emotional reactions. For example, disaster relief organizations use images of devastation after hurricanes or earthquakes. People imagine themselves or loved ones affected. They feel immediate fear about potential loss or suffering. This motivates them to donate money or supplies quickly. Public safety campaigns use fear appeals effectively. Seatbelt campaigns show graphic scenes of car accidents. Drivers watching these images experience a strong fear of injury or death. The campaign then emphasizes wearing seatbelts as a simple action to prevent tragedy. Drivers respond because they want to avoid harm. Fear appeals also show up in cybersecurity warnings. Companies might say, "Without protection, your data could be stolen." Individuals fear losing private information, money, or identity. This fear motivates them to buy security software, you follow safety advice. Clearly showing risks makes threats feel real and prompts immediate protective actions. Environmental campaigns often use fear appeal to highlight consequences. They show pictures of polluted oceans, dying wildlife, or deforested areas. Messages like, "If we don't act now, our planet will suffer permanent damage," create fear about losing natural resources or harming future generations. This motivates people to recycle, conserve water, or support environmental policies. Fear appeal can change social behavior too. Campaigns against texting while driving often show realistic scenes of accidents caused by distracted drivers. These visuals create immediate fear about hurting someone else or causing an accident. Drivers remember these scenes when tempted to text behind the wheel. Fear motivates safer behavior because the consequences seem severe and realistic. Fear appeals should carefully balance anxiety and reassurance. Excessive fear without clear guidance might paralyze people or lead to avoidance. Messages should clearly state the risk, then quickly offer achievable solutions. For example, warnings about house fires might say, "Smoke detectors save lives. Check yours today." The risk feels urgent, but the solution is easy to follow. Overall, fear appeal relies on making threats feel immediate, realistic, and preventable. Clearly defined threats motivate quick action, but only if people see realistic ways to reduce anxiety. Understanding how fear appeals work allows people to recognize when they're influenced by anxiety rather than careful decision-making. Recognizing fear appeal helps people step back, evaluate threats calmly, and make decisions based on reason rather than impulse. The false consensus trick involves presenting an idea or behavior as if most people already agree or support it. By creating the impression that everyone else thinks this way, it makes a belief or action feel normal and correct. People naturally prefer to align with what they think the majority believes, so they are more likely to accept or adopt something presented as common sense. This trick works because humans seek social acceptance. If someone thinks most people hold a certain view, they hesitate to disagree openly. They assume the majority must have a good reason for thinking that way. Rather than risk feeling isolated, they join in or stay quiet. Over time, the false consensus shapes opinions and behavior, even if no true majority existed at first. For example, consider a situation at work. A manager wants employees to stay late for meetings regularly. To encourage acceptance, the manager says everyone else thinks it's important and doesn't mind the extra hour. Even if many employees privately dislike staying late, they now believe their coworkers accept it. Employees become reluctant to speak up, fearing they'll appear out of step. The false consensus makes staying late seem normal and accepted, quietly pressuring everyone into agreement. In politics, false consensus frequently appears in speeches and debates. Politicians might claim, "The American people overwhelmingly support this policy," even without clear evidence. By presenting support as widespread, they pressure voters who might disagree privately into silence. The voters wonder if they're the minority and begin to question their own opinions. Eventually, many accept the policy as normal, believing most others agree. Advertising uses false consensus to increase sales. Commercials often say, 9 out of 10 customers prefer our product. This phrase makes viewers believe nearly everyone else already approves. Even without checking facts, customers assume there must be a good reason for widespread approval. They buy the product because they want to align with the majority opinion. Social media amplifies false consensus. When users see posts with many likes or shares, they assume widespread agreement. Suppose someone posts a strong opinion about a controversial issue, receiving hundreds of likes. Other users see the reaction and think, most people agree with this viewpoint. Even if the opinion was originally held by only a small group, the impression of broad agreement influences others to adopt the view or avoid challenging it publicly. Educational settings use false consensus as well. A teacher might say, "Most students understand this material easily." A struggling student hearing this might feel embarrassed, assuming they are the only one having trouble. They hesitate to speak up and get help, believing their difficulty is unusual. In reality, many classmates might also struggle, but the false consensus keeps them quiet. False consensus also shapes social behaviors. Teenagers often feel pressure to drink alcohol or use drugs if they believe most peers do the same. Even if only a few friends engage in risky behaviors, they might claim everyone does it. The belief that everyone else drinks or uses drugs normalizes risky behavior, influencing others to join. Teens worry they'll be excluded if they don't participate, so they go along with the false majority. Workplace culture can be built on false consensus. Imagine a company where working long hours is described as common practice. Managers say things like, "Everyone stays late to finish important projects." Employees who prefer balanced schedules feel pressured to match this supposed norm. They may accept working extra hours, not because they truly agree, but because they believe everyone else does. The trick also appears in public health contexts. Suppose health authorities say, "Everyone knows this vaccine is safe," even though many people still have questions. By stating safety as universally accepted, they reduce hesitation. People worry they'll appear uninformed or stubborn if they disagree. Instead, They choose to trust the supposed consensus, even if privately uncertain. False consensus frequently appears in fundraising or charitable appeals. A charity might say, most people donate at least $50, even if most donors actually give smaller amounts. People hearing this feel pressured to match the imagined average. They don't want to appear stingy or out of step, so they donate the higher suggested amount. Group decision-making often includes false consensus. Suppose a team leader says, "We all agree this project needs to start immediately." Even if some team members have doubts, they're hesitant to speak up. They assume everyone else genuinely agrees, and they don't want to appear difficult or negative. The false consensus pushes the group toward quick agreement without genuine discussion. False consensus shapes everyday conversations. Imagine a group discussing a popular movie. One person confidently says, "Everyone loves this film. It's the best movie of the year." Others who didn't enjoy the movie might stay quiet or even reconsider their opinions. They assume most people genuinely agree, and they don't want to appear different or wrong. The illusion of consensus silences genuine opinions. The strength of the false consensus trick lies in people's fear of social isolation. People naturally want acceptance from their group. If they believe most others agree about something, they're hesitant to challenge it. They wonder if their own viewpoint is mistaken or odd. Rather than risk being seen as different or difficult, they align with the apparent majority, even if that majority doesn't truly exist. To resist false consensus, people need to recognize when consensus is assumed rather than proven. Ask questions like, "Who exactly believes this?" Or, "Where is the evidence that most people agree?" Simply noticing when statements claim broad agreement without proof weakens the trick's power. It helps people retain confidence in their own judgments. Individuals can also challenge false consensus by speaking openly. When someone says, "Everyone agrees," gently ask, "Are we sure everyone feels that way?" Or, "Maybe we should hear from others." This encourages genuine discussion and reveals hidden disagreements. It prevents the illusion of total agreement from taking hold. False consensus relies on people's reluctance to voice dissenting views. Creating an environment where different opinions are respected and encouraged weakens this trick. When people feel safe sharing their honest perspectives, false consensus has less power. Openness and questioning break the illusion that everyone agrees. Understanding false consensus helps people avoid conforming unnecessarily. When people recognize the tactic, they make choices based on their own values rather than perceived social pressures. Awareness of false consensus encourages critical thinking and supports honest communication. It enables individuals to act and think independently rather than following assumed majorities. Silent treatment is a form of social exclusion, where someone refuses to interact, speak, or give approval. This act is meant to control, punish, or manipulate another person. It can happen in many places, at home, work, school, or in friendships. Often, the silent treatment is subtle, and the person using it avoids direct conflict. Instead of saying what they feel or want, they choose silence. This behavior is not just about being quiet. It is a way to send a message without words. The goal is often to make the other person feel uncomfortable, anxious, or guilty until they give in or apologize. Imagine a couple who has an argument. Instead of discussing what happened, one partner stops talking to the other. They refuse to respond to questions or acknowledge the other's presence. Days can pass without a single word. The silent partner eats meals alone, avoids eye contact, and acts as if the other person is invisible. The excluded partner feels confused, hurt, and desperate to make things right, even if they do not know what they did wrong. This silent barrier works as a tool of control. The excluded partner learns that if they want peace, they must guess what went wrong and fix it, even if it means giving up their own needs. The silent treatment is not limited to personal relationships. In the workplace, a manager might use it to punish an employee. Instead of giving feedback, the manager ignores the employee, excludes them from meetings, or acts as if their ideas do not exist. The employee starts to worry about their job and tries to win back the manager's approval. In this way, the silent treatment pressures the employee to comply without the manager having to explain or justify their behavior. In schools, students sometimes use the silent treatment to exclude others from a group. For example, a group of friends may decide to stop talking to one member after a disagreement. The excluded student sits alone at lunch, receives no replies to messages, and gets left out of group activities. The group uses silence as a weapon. The excluded student feels rejected and anxious, not knowing how to make things right. The message is clear: follow the group's rules or stay isolated. Silent treatment is different from needing time to think or calm down. Everyone sometimes needs space after a conflict, but the silent treatment is a pattern, not a pause. It is an intentional decision to withhold interaction until the other person changes their behavior or submits. This difference matters because the silent treatment is not about healthy boundaries. It is about power. People use the silent treatment for different reasons. Some do it because they never learned how to talk about their feelings. Others use it because they saw it work before. For some, it feels safer to withdraw than to risk an argument. But whatever the reason, the effect is often the same. The excluded person feels anxious, unsure, and alone. They become focused on fixing the relationship, even if they did nothing wrong. Silent treatment also causes stress. Research shows that social exclusion can cause real pain. The brain reacts to exclusion much like it reacts to physical pain. The person who is ignored feels rejected and threatened. Over time, repeated silent treatment can lower self-esteem and lead to depression or anxiety. Let's look at another example. Picture a friend group where two members have a disagreement. Instead of talking, one member stops responding to messages and avoids the other. The rest of the group follows along, fearing that they might be next. The silent treatment spreads, and the group becomes tense and uneasy. In the end, the original issue is never resolved. The excluded member feels left out, and the group loses trust. In families, parents sometimes use the silent treatment with children. If a child misbehaves, a parent might ignore them for hours or even days. The child learns that making mistakes leads to emotional distance, not support or guidance. Over time, the child may become afraid to speak up, share feelings, or ask for help. Sometimes, people say they use the silent treatment to teach a lesson, but this method rarely helps the other person understand what went wrong. It creates confusion and resentment instead. The person on the receiving end tries to guess what caused the silence, but without clear communication, they can only guess. Not all silence is silent treatment. Sometimes someone needs to cool down or find the right words. The difference is in intention and pattern. Silent treatment is not a single act. It is a pattern of using silence to get a specific response from others. Silent treatment can feel tempting when emotions run high. Refusing to speak can seem easier than risking a fight. But when silence becomes a tool for control, it does real harm. It teaches others that relationships depend on pleasing the person who withholds interaction. This dynamic erodes trust and damages connection. In work settings, silent treatment can lead to bigger problems. If a manager ignores an employee, others may copy this behavior. Teamwork suffers, morale drops, and the workplace becomes toxic. Good ideas get lost, and people stop speaking up. Over time, employees may leave, and the team's performance declines. In friend groups, silent treatment can tear relationships apart. Excluding one person can start a chain reaction. Others worry about being next and start acting in ways that please the group, even if they feel uncomfortable. The group's unity becomes fragile, based on fear rather than trust. In romantic relationships, the silent treatment can destroy intimacy. Communication breaks down. Resentment grows. Partners stop feeling safe to express their needs or concerns. The relationship becomes a power struggle, not a partnership. People on the receiving end of the silent treatment often blame themselves. They try harder to please, apologize, or fix the situation. But the responsibility does not lie with them. The person giving the silent treatment chooses to withhold communication instead of facing the real issue. Silent treatment is a form of manipulation. It hides behind a wall of silence, but sends a loud message: change your behavior or stay excluded. The solution is not always easy, but it begins with recognizing the pattern. Communication and boundaries matter. Healthy relationships depend on both people being able to talk, listen, and work through conflict together. Silent treatment is a form of social exclusion where someone refuses to interact, speak, or give approval. This act is meant to control, punish, or manipulate another person. It can happen in many places: at home, work, school, or in friendships. Often, the silent treatment is subtle, and the person using it avoids direct conflict. Instead of saying what they feel or want, they choose silence. This behavior is not just about being quiet. It is a way to send a message without words. The goal is often to make the other person feel uncomfortable, anxious, or guilty, until they give in or apologize. Imagine a couple who has an argument. Instead of discussing what happened, one partner stops talking to the other. They refuse to respond to questions or acknowledge the other's presence. Days can pass without a single word. The silent partner eats meals alone, avoids eye contact, and acts as if the other person is invisible. The excluded partner feels confused, hurt, and desperate to make things right, even if they do not know what they did wrong. This silent barrier works as a tool of control. The excluded partner learns that if they want peace, they must guess what went wrong and fix it, even if it means giving up their own needs. The silent treatment is not limited to personal relationships. In the workplace, a manager might use it to punish an employee. Instead of giving feedback, the manager ignores the employee, excludes them from meetings, or acts as if their ideas do not exist. The employee starts to worry about their job and tries to win back the manager's approval. In this way, the silent treatment pressures the employee to comply without the manager having to explain or justify their behavior. In schools, students sometimes use the silent treatment to exclude others from a group. For example, a group of friends may decide to stop talking to one member after a disagreement. The excluded student sits alone at lunch, receives no replies to messages, and gets left out of group activities. The group uses silence as a weapon. The excluded student feels rejected and anxious, not knowing how to make things right. The message is clear: follow the group's rules or stay isolated. Silent treatment is different from needing time to think or calm down. Everyone sometimes needs space after a conflict, but the silent treatment is a pattern, not a pause. It is an intentional decision to withhold interaction until the other person changes their behavior or submits. This difference matters because the silent treatment is not about healthy boundaries. It is about power. People use the silent treatment for different reasons. Some do it because they never learned how to talk about their feelings. Others use it because they saw it work before. For some, it feels safer to withdraw than to risk an argument. But whatever the reason, the effect is often the same. The excluded person feels anxious, unsure, and alone. They become focused on fixing the relationship, even if they did nothing wrong. Silent treatment also causes stress. Research shows that social exclusion can cause real pain. The brain reacts to exclusion much like it reacts to physical pain. The person who is ignored feels rejected and threatened. Over time, repeated silent treatment can lower self-esteem and lead to depression or anxiety. Let's look at another example. Picture a friend group where two members have a disagreement. Instead of talking, one member stops responding to messages and avoids the other. The rest of the group follows along, fearing that they might be next. The silent treatment spreads, and the group becomes tense and uneasy. In the end, the original issue is never resolved. The excluded member feels left out, and the group loses trust. In families, parents sometimes use the silent treatment with children. If a child misbehaves, a parent might ignore them for hours or even days. The child learns that making mistakes leads to emotional distance, not support or guidance. Over time, the child may become afraid to speak up, share feelings, or ask for help. Sometimes, people say they use the silent treatment to teach a lesson, but this method rarely helps the other person understand what went wrong. It creates confusion and resentment instead. The person on the receiving end tries to guess what caused the silence, but without clear communication, they can only guess. Not all silence is silent treatment. Sometimes, someone needs to cool down or find the right words. The difference is in intention and pattern. Silent treatment is not a single act. It is a pattern of using silence to get a specific response from others. Silent treatment can feel tempting when emotions run high. Refusing to speak can seem easier than risking a fight. But when silence becomes a tool for control, it does real harm. It teaches others that relationships depend on pleasing the person who withholds interaction. This dynamic erodes trust and damages connection. In work settings, silent treatment can lead to bigger problems. If a manager ignores an employee, others may copy this behavior. Teamwork suffers, morale drops, and the workplace becomes toxic. Good ideas get lost, and people stop speaking up. Over time, employees may leave, and the team's performance declines. In friend groups, silent treatment can tear relationships apart. Excluding one person can start a chain reaction. Others worry about being next and start acting in ways that please the group, even if they feel uncomfortable. The group's unity becomes fragile, based on fear rather than trust. In romantic relationships, the silent treatment can destroy intimacy. Communication breaks down. Resentment grows. Partners stop feeling safe to express their needs or concerns. The relationship becomes a power struggle, not a partnership. People on the receiving end of the silent treatment often blame themselves. They try harder to please, apologize, or fix the situation. But the responsibility does not lie with them. The person giving the silent treatment chooses to withhold communication instead of facing the real issue. Silent treatment is a form of manipulation. It hides behind a wall of silence, but sends a loud message: change your behavior or stay excluded. The solution is not always easy, but it begins with recognizing the pattern. Communication and boundaries matter. Healthy relationships depend on both people being able to talk, listen, and work through conflict together. Emotional contagion is the process of spreading feelings from one person to others, often without anyone noticing. When you walk into a room where someone is upset, you might soon feel uneasy yourself. If your coworker laughs at a joke, you may start to smile, even if you did not hear the punchline. This process is not always obvious. People catch each other's emotions the way they catch a cold. It can happen through a tone of voice, a look, or even body language. Emotional contagion can shape a group's mood and even guide what people do. Picture a classroom. The teacher walks in, excited about the lesson. She smiles, her eyes light up, and she starts talking about the day's topic with energy. Most of the students start paying attention. Some sit up straight. The room feels lively. If the teacher came in looking tired or bored, the students would likely lose interest. Her mood sets the tone, and soon the group mood shifts to match hers. This is not limited to classrooms. Emotional contagion shows up at work, at home, on sports teams, and in crowds. In meetings, when the leader stays calm during a crisis, the team often feels more confident. When a leader looks nervous, the team may become anxious too. It's not only about spoken words. People pick up cues from facial expressions, posture, and tone. One person's tension or excitement spreads to others, shaping the mood of the whole group. Sometimes, people use emotional contagion on purpose. A manager who wants the team to rally before a big project might show excitement and determination, even if she feels uncertain. Her goal is to inspire the group. By acting confident and upbeat, she helps others feel the same way. This works because people tend to mirror what they see. If someone frowns, others may start frowning. If someone smiles, smiles spread. Scientists call this mirroring or mimicry. It is part of how humans connect. Take a sports team before a game. The coach gives a pep talk, his voice firm and clear. He shows excitement and belief in the team. Players pick up on his mood. The energy in the locker room rises. Players feel ready to give their best. If the coach appeared worried or angry, that feeling would ripple through the team instead. Emotional contagion does not just move positive feelings. It also spreads anger, sadness, fear, or stress. At a family dinner, if one person is in a bad mood and speaks sharply, others may become quiet or irritable. Even babies are sensitive to the mood around them. If parents argue, babies may cry more or refuse to eat. In the workplace, if one person panics during a crisis, that panic can move through the office quickly. People feel tense, and mistakes become more likely. Social media speeds up emotional contagion. When someone posts an angry rant or a sad story, followers often react with similar feelings. Posts can go viral because people respond with the same emotion, sharing and commenting in ways that amplify the mood. A happy or funny post can lift the mood of hundreds, while a negative post can bring people down. Leaders often use emotional contagion, both on purpose and by accident. Some use it as a tool to shape group behavior. In customer service, a manager might start every shift with a cheerful greeting, hoping the staff will pick up that energy and pass it to customers. If the manager complains, workers may grow resentful and less friendly. In politics, a candidate who shows hope and energy can inspire supporters to feel and act the same. If a leader is angry, that anger may stir up the group. Not all emotional contagion is healthy. In a workplace, if one person is negative every day, the whole team can become frustrated or cynical. This hurts morale and productivity. A single angry or anxious person can turn a calm meeting into a tense one. At home, a parent's stress can make children feel unsafe or worried, even if the parent does not say much. People with strong emotions tend to be more contagious. Some have what psychologists call high emotional expressiveness. Their moods are easy to read. These people often sway the mood of others more than quiet or reserved people do. But even those who do not show much can affect others. A sigh, a heavy silence, or a quick smile can still send a message. Mirroring happens fast. People copy what they see and hear without thinking. If a coworker slams a door, others may tense up. If someone laughs, laughter spreads. This happens because of mirror neurons in the brain. When you see someone smile, your brain fires in ways that help you smile too. This is automatic and often happens before you even know it. Emotional contagion can help build teamwork and trust. When a leader stays positive, people work together better. When a team shares excitement about a goal, they encourage each other and overcome setbacks. But it can also damage trust. If people feel pressure to match a leader's mood even when they feel different, resentment can grow. If a leader hides anxiety behind a false smile, people may sense something is off and lose trust. During a crisis, emotional contagion matters even more. Imagine a hospital emergency room. If the lead doctor stays focused and calm, the team works smoothly, even under pressure. If she panics, the team might lose focus and make mistakes. Her mood spreads, shaping how the team acts and feels. In crowds, emotional contagion can create excitement, fear, or even chaos. At concerts or sporting events, the crowd's excitement can build until everyone is on their feet. At protests, if anger spreads, A peaceful gathering can turn tense or even violent. Emotional contagion is powerful in groups, especially when people feel connected or sense a shared goal. People do not always realize when they are catching emotions from others. The process is subtle. You may leave a meeting feeling drained or energized and not know why. Sometimes you can protect yourself by noticing what is happening. If you know a coworker is often negative, you can set a mental boundary. If you want to lift a group's mood, you can use positive body language and a steady voice. Emotional contagion is not manipulation by itself. It becomes manipulation if someone uses it to get what they want at the cost of others. A leader who uses fear to control a team is manipulating through emotional contagion. A friend who acts upset to get attention can also shape the mood of the group. In both cases, the goal is to move others to act or feel a certain way, often for the benefit of the person spreading the emotion. The key to understanding emotional contagion is to notice its effect. It shapes groups and relationships. It works through simple signals: tone, body language, words, and even silence. Anyone can spread feelings to others. Some do it on purpose, but often it happens without thinking. Emotional contagion is part of how people connect, influence, and work together. Creating dependency in a relationship or interaction is a slow process. It begins with making someone feel you are a stable, reliable source of approval, validation, or even emotional comfort. You offer them the sense that you see them clearly, that you understand their needs, and you are willing to meet them. You become the person they go to for reassurance. You shape their sense of self-worth around your approval. As this continues, they start to rely on you for their confidence, security, and sense of stability. You do not do this with grand gestures or dramatic statements. Instead, it's the small things you say and do that matter. When they share a success, you make them feel seen. You praise them in a way that feels unique to them. When they express doubt or insecurity, you reassure them. But over time, you start to create moments when you withdraw this validation. You let them wonder where they stand. You introduce uncertainty, not in obvious ways, but by responding less warmly or giving shorter answers. If they notice and ask, you make it seem like nothing has changed. You stay calm and gentle, but the shift is clear. Soon, they work harder for your attention. They look for ways to win back your warmth. They apologize for small things or ask what they did wrong, even if you never blamed them. You keep your responses steady and matter of fact. You do not promise anything. You give only enough to make them believe the connection is still there, but never enough for them to feel secure. This approach works because people crave stability. When you provide validation, they relax. When you withdraw it, they become anxious and try to fix the situation. Their sense of comfort begins to depend on your reaction. You become the standard they measure themselves against. Over time, this makes them more likely to follow your lead. They begin to seek your advice before making decisions. They check in with you before expressing an opinion. They watch your face for signs of approval or disapproval. In conversations, they mirror your language, agree with your points, and adapt to your moods. An example of this dynamic could be a manager with a new employee. The manager gives the employee praise for their first project, making them feel noticed and capable. The next week, a manager offers little feedback and appears distracted during their conversations. The employee worries they did something wrong. They try to impress the manager with extra work or stay late to show dedication. The manager continues to provide inconsistent feedback, sometimes warm and sometimes cold. The employee starts to rely on the manager's mood for their own sense of accomplishment and value. Another scenario could be within a friendship. One person in the friendship becomes the source of approval. They listen carefully and make their friend feel understood. Over time, this person starts to give less attention. They respond to messages more slowly, When they do respond, they are brief and seem distant. The friend, now unsure of their standing, tries harder to please them. They become more agreeable, offer favors, and seek reassurance that the friendship is still strong. The power in the relationship shifts. The friend who offers validation gains control, while the other becomes dependent. In romantic relationships, this process can be even more subtle. One partner gives compliments, shows interest, and makes the other feel special. As the connection grows, they begin to pull back in small ways, forgetting plans, giving lukewarm responses to messages, or expressing mild disappointment over minor issues. The partner who once felt secure now works harder to regain that early affection. They may start to doubt themselves, question their worth, and look to their partner for reassurance. Their self-esteem becomes tied to the level of approval they receive. The person who controls the flow of validation holds the upper hand. Control emerges as dependency grows. Once someone feels they need your approval or stability, you can shape their choices. You can suggest what is best for them, and they are more likely to accept it without question. You can set boundaries that favor you, and they will adjust their behavior to keep your approval. Their desire to feel safe and valued by you overrides their own preferences. The tactics used here do not involve direct orders or open manipulation. Instead, they rely on shaping expectations and emotional responses. You learn what the other person values and reflect it back to them. When you remove your approval or attention, you create a sense of loss. They work to restore what they feel is missing. Each time you give back some of that approval, you reinforce the connection. The cycle continues, deepening the dependency. You do not need to raise your voice or argue. Calm, measured words have a stronger effect. When you do offer approval, you do so in a way that makes the other person believe it is earned, not given freely. When you withdraw, you appear neutral, almost indifferent. This neutrality can feel cold and confusing. The other person may blame themselves, believing they failed in some way. You never confirm or deny this. You keep your answers vague, letting them fill the silence with their own doubts. Over time, you become the anchor in the relationship. Your approval or disapproval sets the tone for interactions. The other person adapts to keep you close, seeking your validation above all else. You do not force compliance. Instead, you guide them, and they follow because they believe your approval is the key to their own sense of self-worth and security. This process does not require complexity. The core is simple. Provide what someone wants, then take it away in small, measured ways. Make them work for it. Let them believe they can earn back your approval. Keep your emotions steady and your words plain. Avoid dramatic gestures or threats. Rely on the power of absence and the human need for stability. The person who controls validation and approval will always have the upper hand in any relationship built on dependency. Intermittent reinforcement is a method used to shape behavior by giving rewards in an inconsistent pattern. This pattern is not predictable. People or animals never know when the next reward is coming or if it will come at all. When used in relationships or in other areas like gambling, intermittent reinforcement can create strong, obsessive, or even addictive behaviors. The reason for this is simple. When rewards come at random intervals, people keep trying, hoping the next reward will arrive. The uncertainty keeps them engaged far longer than a steady stream of rewards or complete lack of them ever would. To use intermittent reinforcement, you begin by providing something the other person wants, such as praise, affection, or approval. This can also include gifts, special attention, or physical closeness. You give this reward, but not on a set schedule. Some days you offer warmth and attention, and on other days, you withdraw it without warning or explanation. The other person cannot predict when they will receive positive feedback. They might experience long stretches with no reward at all, and then suddenly, you surprise them with affection or praise. This unpredictability creates a strong drive to seek more of the reward. The person keeps coming back, repeating the behavior you want to see, even if the reward is rare. They remember the good moments and hope those will return. They may overlook or excuse the periods when you withhold attention or kindness. Their focus shifts from the negative moments to chasing the next positive one. The hope for another reward becomes the main motivator. One of the clearest examples of intermittent reinforcement appears in gambling. Slot machines do not pay out every time someone pulls the lever. Most of the time, nothing happens. Sometimes there is a small win. Rarely, there is a big win. The gambler never knows when the payout will occur, so they keep playing, drawn by the possibility of a reward. This system is more effective at keeping people engaged than giving a small guaranteed reward every time. The same process works in personal relationships. Imagine a couple where one partner is warm and loving some of the time, but distant or cold at other times for no clear reason. The partner on the receiving end feels confused and uncertain. They try to figure out what they did right when things felt good and what went wrong when affection is withdrawn. They may work harder to please their partner, believing this will bring back the warmth and approval. When they do get affection or praise, the emotional impact is stronger because it is unexpected. The relationship becomes marked by anxiety and hope rather than comfort and trust. Intermittent reinforcement can also show up in friendships. For example, one friend might invite another to spend time together or offer compliments and attention. Sometimes they ignore messages or act disinterested for days or weeks. When they return, they are charming and attentive again. The friend who experiences this pattern feels uncertain about their standing in the relationship. They put in extra effort to keep the connection alive, often at the cost of their own comfort or self-respect. This pattern creates a powerful cycle. The unpredictability of rewards makes the occasional positive moment feel more valuable. Each instance of praise or affection acts as a small victory. The person receiving intermittent rewards begins to shape their behavior to try to bring about more rewards. They may change their appearance, their words, or even their beliefs to please the one giving out the inconsistent rewards. The more unpredictable the reward, the stronger the hold. Animal training uses this concept as well. Trainers might give treats to dogs for performing tricks, but not every time. The dog learns to keep repeating the behavior, hoping for a treat. This kind of reinforcement is strong because it makes the animal persist, not knowing when the next reward will come. To apply intermittent reinforcement in a relationship, you do not need to be harsh or overt. You simply give out positive attention or praise at irregular intervals. There is no obvious pattern. When the other person does something you want, sometimes you respond with kindness or approval. Other times, you remain neutral or unresponsive, even if their actions are the same. They try to figure out the pattern and become more invested in pleasing you. The effect is not limited to romantic or personal relationships. In work settings, a manager might use praise and recognition in unpredictable ways. Employees who never know when their work will be noticed work harder, hoping for approval. They focus on the memory of past praise and ignore the times they are overlooked. This keeps them motivated, but it also leads to anxiety and sometimes resentment. A scenario might involve a teacher and student. The teacher praises the student's efforts on some days, but offers no feedback at all on others. The student works harder and harder, trying to earn the teacher's approval. The praise, when it comes, feels more significant and valuable. The student becomes dependent on the teacher's approval for motivation. The power of intermittent reinforcement is that it hooks people in. They become focused on getting the next positive experience. They can lose sight of how rarely these rewards come or how much negative emotion they endure in between. The random nature of the rewards overrides logical thinking. People begin to rationalize bad treatment, believing the next good moment is just around the corner. This pattern does not need loud arguments, harsh punishment, or even clear criticism. All it takes is to provide attention or praise at random times, then withdraw it without explanation. The other person tries to earn back your approval, sometimes without realizing what is happening. Their thoughts become centered around the relationship or situation, and their self-worth can become tied to the intermittent rewards. The cycle is powerful because hope is stronger than certainty in these situations. When people do not know when they will receive praise, affection, or approval, they value it more when it comes. They work harder for it. This drive is not rational, but emotional. The feeling of unpredictability keeps them coming back, repeating behaviors and seeking the next positive moment. Intermittent reinforcement shapes behavior through this very uncertainty. False urgency is a tactic that uses time pressure to make people act before they can think. This strategy appears everywhere: sales, scams, cult recruitment, and even everyday business meetings. The goal is to make someone feel there is no time to wait, no time to consider, and no time to ask questions. When people sense urgency, their reasoning drops, and they act on impulse. This is what makes false urgency so effective. You start by stating there is a limit. The limit could be time, supply, or opportunity. You might say, only a few spots left, or you have to decide today or lose your chance. The language is clear, but the facts behind it may not be. Sometimes the limit is real, but often it is not. The pressure is the point. It gives the target a reason to move fast. When someone feels they have little time, they worry they will miss out. The term for this is FOMO, or fear of missing out. People dislike the feeling of being left behind, so urgency moves them to act. Scenarios that use false urgency can be simple. Imagine a car salesperson tells a buyer, "This deal ends at closing tonight." The buyer feels pressure. If they wait, they might lose out. They rush their decision. They skip questions about interest rates or maintenance history. They sign the paperwork fast. The salesperson knows the same deal will be there tomorrow, but the buyer does not. The urgency is false, but the effect is real. In online shopping, urgency is everywhere. A website flashes, "Only 2 left in stock," or "Sale ends in 1 hour." A countdown timer ticks down on the screen. The shopper moves quickly. They add to their cart, afraid someone else will get the last item. The timer may reset for the next person, or the item may not be in short supply at all. The urgency is manufactured. The aim is to keep people from stopping to think or compare options. Scams use false urgency to lower defenses. A common scam is the fake bank alert. You get a message. Your account has been locked due to suspicious activity. Call this number now or your funds will be frozen. The language suggests you must act now or you lose access. Fear makes you call. You follow the scammer's instructions without thinking, hoping to fix the problem. If you pause to check the bank's website, you would see nothing is wrong. The scam works only if you rush. Cult recruitment often uses this tactic to trap people. Someone attends a meeting. The leader says, "You have a chance to join our special group, but we need your answer tonight." New members get told the group is about to start an important project, and they must commit now or lose their spot forever. The pressure is emotional. The person feels honored to be chosen, but scared to lose the chance. They do not go home to think. They say yes in the moment, then later realize they have given up money, time, or even contact with friends and family. This tactic works because urgency causes stress. The mind shifts from careful thinking to action. Salespeople know this. They set up flash sales that last a few hours. They offer early bird discounts that end soon. At the checkout, a pop-up warns, "Complete your purchase in 5 minutes or lose your cart." These tricks are simple but powerful. People do not want to lose a good deal or risk missing out, so they buy now, think later. In meetings, false urgency appears when someone says, "We need a decision by noon," or "We miss the window." The deadline might be fake. the speaker may want to push through a plan before others can see its flaws. When the group moves fast, questions get skipped. Details do not get checked. A decision goes through before anyone can object. Another example is in real estate. An agent shows a house and says, "I already have 3 offers. If you want this place, you must act today." The buyer feels pushed. They skip the inspection or offer more than they planned. Often, there are no other offers. The agent uses urgency to speed up the sale. Phone scams work the same way. The caller says they are from the IRS or police. "There is a warrant for your arrest. Pay now, or we send officers to your house." The threat is urgent. The victim feels fear. They wire money or give up personal information before thinking to check if the call is real. Urgency makes people ignore warning signs. In cults, the urgency is not just about joining. It might be about giving money. A leader claims the group faces a crisis. "We need everyone to donate by midnight, or we lose our building." The deadline is false. The goal is to collect money fast before doubts set in. In each case, the formula is the same. Set a short timeline. Make the offer or threat sound exclusive. Repeat that waiting means losing something valuable. Use plain but strong words. Now, today, last chance, before it's too late. Avoid details that can be checked. If someone asks for time, warn them it will be too late. Even in normal workplaces, false urgency can control behavior. A boss might say, "I need this report in the next hour or the project fails." The employee skips checking numbers or proofing the text. The boss wanted speed, not accuracy. When this happens often, mistakes pile up, but the habit is set. People react, not think. To create false urgency, you do not need anger or loud words. Calm, steady delivery works best. Say, "I don't want you to miss out," or, "If you wait, the chance is gone." The listener's mind does the rest. They picture losing the house, the job, the product, or the group's approval. The fear of loss is stronger than the promise of gain. The pattern repeats across many situations. Each time, urgency breaks down careful thinking. The person responds to pressure, not facts. They move fast, sign up, pay money, or agree to terms. Only after, when the pressure lifts, do they see what happened. Scenarios can be as simple as a store clerk saying, "The last of these went 10 minutes ago. This is your only chance." Or as complex as a cult leader telling a group, "We must leave tonight, or we lose our sanctuary." The pressure is not about truth. It is about making action happen now. Even outside of high-stakes situations, false urgency appears in emails, pop-up ads, or phone calls. You have 24 hours to claim your prize. This survey closes in 1 hour. Respond now to get your free gift. Each message tries to force a quick response. The person using false urgency acts calm, confident, and clear. They do not sound desperate. They let the timeline and the threat or offer do the work. The target fills in the gaps with their own fears or hopes. The cycle is quick, efficient, and effective. The less time people have, the more likely they are to act without thinking. This is the heart of false urgency. Sign. Love bombing is a tactic where someone showers another person with extreme amounts of attention, praise, affection, and promises early in a relationship. This approach is not always sincere. It often has a hidden purpose: to break down emotional boundaries and gain quick control. The person using love bombing tries to make the target feel special and chosen, so they let their guard down. This tactic shows up in different types of relationships: romantic, friendships, family, even in organizations or cults. The process usually starts fast. The person giving the affection seems to know exactly what the target wants to hear. They might call or text all day, give gifts, say things like, "I've never felt this way before," or insist that this connection is fate. Compliments come thick and fast. They might say, "You are the only one who understands me," or "I can't believe how perfect you are for me." The point is to overwhelm. The target is caught off guard and feels like they are in a dream. This sudden affection creates a rush of excitement and pleasure. For someone who feels lonely, insecure, or uncertain, the attention can feel like relief. The target starts to believe they have finally found someone who truly cares. They might drop their boundaries and open up faster than usual. When love bombing works, the target can feel a sense of obligation, even dependence, because the attention feels so good compared to what they knew before. Love bombing often happens in romantic relationships, but not always. In a romantic scenario, a person might take someone on expensive dates, send long messages about their feelings, make future plans quickly, and say, "I love you," after only a few days or weeks. If the other person expresses doubt or says things are moving too fast, the love bomber insists that this is how true love feels. They say, "When you know, or claim that slow relationships are not real. Cults use the same method to attract new members. A newcomer attends a meeting and is greeted with warmth and interest. Members hug them, invite them to dinner, and tell them how wonderful and unique they are. The group leader singles them out for praise, saying they have rare qualities or a special destiny. The newcomer feels important, maybe for the first time in a long while. They do not realize that this level of attention is not genuine or sustainable. It is a tactic to pull them in quickly before they can question the group's beliefs or demands. The reason love bombing works is simple. Humans want connection and belonging. When someone receives constant positive feedback, their brain releases chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin, which create pleasure and trust. The target stops thinking critically. They focus on the good feelings and ignore signs that something is off. They might overlook things like controlling behavior, lies, or inconsistencies. Love bombers usually avoid talking about their own flaws. They project a perfect image and say what they think the other person wants to hear. If the target asks questions or points out something strange, the love bomber can become upset or make the target feel guilty. They might say, "Why would you doubt me when I care about you so much?" This creates confusion and can push the target to accept more affection just to keep the peace. In some cases, love bombing flips into devaluation. Once the target is attached, the affection stops. The love bomber pulls away, becomes cold, or criticizes the target. The sudden lack of attention hurts. The target might feel desperate to get back the affection they knew at the beginning. They work harder, apologize for things that were not their fault, or become anxious. This makes the love bomber even more powerful in the relationship. The target is now easy to control. A friendship can go through the same pattern. Imagine two people meet, and one friend immediately wants to spend every day together, gives many compliments, and says they have never had a friend like this. The target feels flattered and happy. Soon, the friend starts asking for favors or expects total loyalty. If the target hesitates, the friend becomes distant or angry. The intense bond built by love bombing is now used as leverage. Family members can use love bombing too. A parent who ignores their child most of the year might suddenly shower them with gifts or affection, especially if they want something in return. The child feels grateful and may try to please the parent, even if it means ignoring their own needs. The affection is not steady or dependable. It is used to get a certain reaction. The signs of love bombing are not always easy to spot when it is happening. The target feels valued and wanted, which can cloud judgment. Fast declarations of love, pressure to move quickly, and promises that seem too good to be true are all signals. The love bomber might resist any attempt to slow things down or get to know each other in a real way. A cult leader may use love bombing in the first week and then start to demand loyalty, money, or obedience. If the new member questions the leader, the affection ends. Other members might stop talking to them. The loss of warmth feels painful, so the new member returns to the group's demands, hoping to get the praise back. The initial love bombing set the stage for this control. In workplace settings, a boss or manager might use love bombing to get employees to take on extra work. At first, the boss gives high praise, offers perks, and acts as a friend. The employee works harder, feeling valued. Later, the boss takes advantage of this loyalty by adding more tasks or making unreasonable demands. The positive attention drops off if the employee objects. Love bombing is effective because it masks true intentions. The person giving the attention is not being real. They use affection as a tool, not as a true connection. The target trusts too soon and stops protecting themselves. Once attached, the target is easier to influence, manipulate, or control. Love bombing is not about love at all. It is about control. It can happen in romance, friendship, family, work, or groups. The pattern looks the same. Quick, intense affection followed by demands or withdrawal. The target loses their boundaries, and the love bomber gains power. The only way to see through love bombing is to slow down, notice the speed and intensity, and ask what happens if you say no or ask for space. In most cases, the affection will stop when the control is lost. Social proof exploitation uses the idea that people copy what others are doing. Most people want to fit in. They look to the actions of others when deciding what is right or popular. If a person sees many people doing something, they assume it must be correct, safe, or desirable. This is social proof. Exploiting social proof means making it seem like a group supports something, even when the group is fake or the support is not genuine. The goal is to push someone to conform, buy, or act, not because they want to, but because they feel everyone else is doing it. Businesses use social proof every day. A website might show a counter that says 1,500 people are looking at this item right now. That number is often not real. It is designed to make the shopper think, if this many people want it, I should get it too. Sometimes, a company fills its site with positive reviews that are not from real buyers. These reviews use fake names and photos. The goal is to make the product look trusted and popular. In another example, a restaurant may display awards or customer ratings in its window. Maybe those awards are old or not true, or maybe the ratings came from a few friends and not from the public. When people walk by and see the signs, they think the place is crowded or famous. They are more likely to go in, not because the food is good, but because they trust what they see others doing. Fake social proof is everywhere online. Companies use bots to create fake followers on social media. A new singer might buy thousands of followers on Instagram or Twitter. The account looks popular, even if those followers are not real people. When real users see a big follower count, they believe the singer must be talented or famous. They follow too. The fake followers create a bandwagon effect. The trick works because people do not want to miss out on what everyone else likes. A common scenario is with online reviews. People trust sites like Amazon, Yelp, or TripAdvisor because they think reviews come from regular users. In reality, many reviews are bought or faked. Some companies hire writers to create hundreds of 5-star reviews. Other times, they use computer programs to generate fake accounts that post positive comments. If a product has 2,000 5-star reviews, people believe it is the best choice. They do not know that most reviews are fake. They buy the item thinking it is a safe bet. Another example is group testimonials. You might visit a website and see statements from real customers with photos and quotes. The people may not exist, or their stories might be made up, but the quotes are written to sound like real experiences. The message is clear. Everyone loves this, so you should too. This creates pressure to go along, even if you have doubts. Fake social proof is not limited to business. Political campaigns use it too. A group might create dozens of fake social media profiles to make it seem like many people support a certain candidate. These profiles post messages, like and share each other's posts, and reply to critics. This creates the illusion of a movement. Voters see the activity and think the candidate is popular or has strong grassroots support. They may join in, not wanting to feel left out or go against the crowd. The same tactics show up in protest movements, cult recruitment, and even charity fundraising. A cult leader might bring in actors to a meeting to pose as happy, committed members. When a new recruit visits, they see a room full of people nodding, clapping, and smiling. The recruit thinks, if all these people believe, maybe I should too. In charity, organizers might exaggerate how many people have donated or inflate totals to create momentum. When someone hears, we have already raised $10,000 from 500 people, they feel pressure to give as well. On streaming platforms, some artists or companies use click farms, places where workers or machines boost play counts and likes. When a video has millions of views, viewers assume it must be good or important. They watch, share, and talk about it, spreading the effect. In reality, many of those views are not real. The popularity is staged. Even in small social settings, people use fake social proof. In a classroom, a teacher might say, everyone else turned in their homework, even if only a few did. The student feels out of step and quickly hands in their work, not wanting to be the odd one out. At work, a manager may claim, all your coworkers agreed to this schedule. The employee, not wanting to stand out, goes along without checking if it is true. There are subtle ways to create the effect too. At an open house, real estate agents may invite friends to show up and walk through the house at the same time as real buyers. The space looks busy. The buyer feels the pressure to act fast. They may make an offer, thinking there is real competition. In reality, the other visitors are only there to fill the room. Sometimes, people exploit trends or viral moments to create fake social proof. They might pay influencers to mention a product or hashtag. When a few big names post about it, the topic trends and more people join in. The early buzz was paid for, not natural. But once it looks popular, real users join and the cycle grows. In customer support, companies may show fake chat windows with names like Jane just bought this item or Mike from Dallas joined now. These messages pop up as you browse, making it look like others are buying or signing up right now. The customer feels left behind and wants to catch up. The power of social proof lies in people's fear of being different. No one wants to stand out as the only one who does not know, does not like, or does not have something. Fake social proof exploits this fear by building the illusion of a crowd. It tells you, this is what people like you are doing. The effect is strongest when someone is unsure or the choice feels risky. Seeing a crowd gives them comfort. When used to control or manipulate, fake social proof bypasses careful thinking. It makes the target focus on what they believe others are doing, not on what they actually want or need. It is simple, quiet, and effective. The more convincing the fake crowd, the stronger the pull. The target rarely knows what is real and what is staged. They just see a group and do what the group appears to do. That is the force behind social proof exploitation. The foot in the emotion technique uses strong feelings to make people easier to influence. The person applying this method does not ask for something right away. Instead, they create a situation that stirs up emotion, anger, guilt, joy, even fear. Once the target feels the emotion, their guard drops. In that moment, the person makes their real request. The target is less likely to think things through or say no. The emotional state acts like an open door, letting the request slip in before rational thought can catch up. The most common emotions used are anger, guilt, and joy. Each works in a different way, but the basic idea stays the same. The stronger the emotion, the weaker the defenses. For example, anger can cloud judgment. Someone who is angry at a third party is less likely to notice manipulation. Guilt can make people eager to make up for their perceived mistakes. Joy creates a sense of connection, making the person more willing to say yes to a request. A salesperson may use this method during a pitch. Before asking a customer to buy, the salesperson tells a story meant to make the listener angry at a problem. Imagine a pitch for home security. The salesperson talks about rising crime rates or a neighbor's recent break-in. The customer feels anxiety or anger at the idea of someone breaking into their home. Right when this feeling is strongest, the salesperson offers their product as the solution. The emotional response makes the risk feel immediate. The customer's normal caution is lower, so they agree faster than if they were calm. Another example is a charity worker seeking donations. Instead of asking for money first, the worker tells a personal story about someone in need. The story might include details about hardship, illness, or loss. The listener feels sadness or guilt. In this state, the charity worker asks for a donation. The listener wants to ease the feeling, so they give more freely. The emotion created by the story is used to open the door for the request. Guilt is often used within families. A parent may say, "I worked so hard to give you everything, and this is how you treat me?" The child feels guilt and shame. While the feeling is strong, the parent asks for a favor or demands an apology. The child's natural resistance is lowered. The emotion acts as leverage to get what the parent wants. Joy can be just as effective. A person throws a surprise party for a friend and makes them the center of attention. The friend feels loved, valued, and happy. During the party, the host asks for help with a future event or seeks a favor. The guest, feeling the high of the celebration, is much more likely to agree. The positive emotion makes them want to keep the good feeling going. This method is not limited to personal relationships. In workplace settings, a manager may start a meeting by celebrating a big success. The team feels proud and connected. While spirits are high, the manager asks them to work late on a new project. The team, caught up in the feeling, says yes, even if they would not have agreed in a normal state. Political groups use foot in the emotion as well. Before asking for support or action, they show images or videos designed to provoke a reaction. Protest organizers might play footage of injustice, stirring anger. While the crowd is upset, the organizer asks them to march, donate, or sign a petition. The request feels urgent because of the emotions stirred up moments before. Advertisers rely on the same technique. Before introducing a product, they tell stories or show images that create a feeling. An ad for a cleaning product might show a worried parent trying to keep their children safe from germs. The viewer feels concern for their own family. As the emotion builds, the ad presents the product as the answer. The viewer is more likely to buy, not because the product is better, but because the emotion clouded their judgment. In romantic relationships, someone might use this method to get more attention or resources from a partner. One partner starts a serious conversation, bringing up past mistakes. The other feels guilt or sadness. In the middle of this feeling, the partner asks for more time together, an expensive gift, or a change in behavior. The guilt makes the request feel reasonable, even if it would seem too much at another time. Religious or spiritual leaders sometimes use foot in the emotion during services. They tell powerful stories, lead emotional music, or create an atmosphere of awe. The congregation feels uplifted or moved. While emotions are high, the leader asks for donations, volunteering, or deeper commitment. The request comes when members are least likely to question or resist. A more manipulative use of this tactic appears in cult recruitment. Newcomers are welcomed and showered with attention, creating a sense of joy and belonging. After this emotional high, the group leader asks them to share personal information, donate money, or cut off outside contact. The positive feeling makes the requests feel right, even if they would seem strange otherwise. Sometimes the emotion is negative. In a business negotiation, one side might bring up unfair treatment or past losses, stirring anger or resentment. While the other party is reacting emotionally, the negotiator pushes for a better deal. The target, wanting to resolve the emotion, gives in more easily. Even small, everyday situations can use this method. A friend tells you about a rough day, making you feel sympathy. Right after, they ask for a favor or to borrow money. You agree because the emotion you feel makes saying no harder. The foot in the emotion approach works because emotions hijack the brain's logical side. In the heat of anger, sadness, or joy, people do not stop to weigh the pros and cons. They react based on feeling, not reason. The person making the request takes advantage of this window. Knowing the answer is more likely to be yes. It is possible to use this method without meaning harm. Parents, teachers, and leaders may stir emotion to motivate action or build connection. But when used for control, the technique turns into manipulation. It replaces real choice with a pressured yes. The best defense is to notice when strong feelings appear right before a request. A pause to think gives logic time to catch up, breaking the hold of emotion and restoring true choice. Divide and conquer is a method that aims to break apart trust and unity within a group, making it easier for one person or faction to hold power. The idea is to stop people from coming together by planting doubts, encouraging suspicion, and stirring up old tensions. When people do not trust each other, they cannot organize or push back. This leaves the one in control free to make decisions without facing a united group. The process often starts with finding natural cracks in the group. Every group has differences, personalities, roles, values, or backgrounds. The person using divide and conquer studies these cracks. They learn who gets along and who does not, who wants more recognition, who feels left out, and who competes for the same resources or praise. Once they know where the lines are, they start working quietly to widen them. This does not mean starting open fights. Instead, it is about quiet comments, rumors, and actions that feed existing doubts. For example, if two coworkers both want a promotion, a manager might tell each one, "I hear the other is saying bad things about you." The manager does not have to prove it. The suggestion is enough to plant a seed of distrust. The coworkers stop working together and start watching each other, trying to protect themselves. In another example, in a family business, the owner might give more information to one sibling than another. The favored sibling feels special, while the other wonders why they are not included. The owner may say, "Don't tell your brother about this yet. I trust you to keep it quiet." Now the siblings are on edge. Each feels uncertain about the other's loyalty. The owner can step back and watch as their doubts grow. Divide and conquer also appears in classrooms. A teacher may praise some students in front of others. They may say, "Some of you are working much harder than the rest," without naming names. The class starts guessing who the teacher means. Some feel proud, others feel resentful. Friendships shift. Students stop helping each other because they want to be seen as the hard worker. The teacher keeps control because the students focus on each other, not on what the teacher is doing. Political leaders use this method at a larger scale. They highlight the differences between groups, rich and poor, rural and urban, new and old members. Instead of solving problems, they blame the other group for issues. In a city council, a mayor might tell business owners that city workers are lazy, then tell workers that business owners are greedy. Each side is too busy defending itself to question the mayor's actions. The leader stays safe because the groups do not unite. Another approach is to spread rumors. This does not require facts. A few well-placed hints can be enough. In a small office, someone might say, "I heard there will be layoffs, but I'm not sure who's safe." Or, "The boss said you might get that new role, but he also mentioned someone else." People start to worry and compare notes. Trust breaks down as they try to figure out the truth. The person who started the rumor stands back and lets the group weaken itself. Divide and conquer can use rewards and punishments. The person in power gives small rewards to certain people but not to others. If someone asks why, the answer is vague. "I need to see more loyalty," or "You have to earn my trust." The rules are never clear. This makes people compete for approval rather than work together. When someone wins a reward, others feel angry or jealous, they blame each other, not the person who set up the system. Sometimes the method is more direct. In a volunteer group, the leader assigns conflicting tasks to different teams, then blames one group for failing to finish. Team A is told to organize an event. Team B is told to handle the same event, but with a different plan. Both groups try to follow orders, but their work clashes. When the event falls apart, the leader blames the teams for not working together. Members of each team blame each other, not realizing they were set up. The leader keeps control because the teams cannot trust each other. A common tactic is selective sharing of information. The person in charge tells each group just enough to get them started, but not enough to see the full picture. When things go wrong, each group thinks another group caused the problem. The leader steps in to solve the issue, gaining more trust and power. This keeps groups weak and focused on their differences. Divide and conquer is also used in authoritarian systems. A ruler may pit military branches against each other or favor one ethnic group over another. By keeping these groups suspicious of each other, the ruler stops any one group from growing strong enough to challenge authority. If one group does try to unite others, the ruler punishes it while rewarding rivals. The others see the danger and choose to stay apart. In relationships, divide and conquer can appear in subtle forms. A parent might say different things to each child, hoping to be the favorite. One friend may gossip about another to split a group. The effect is always the same: less trust, more competition, and weaker bonds. The reason this method works is that people are quick to believe threats to their standing, safety, or reputation. When someone suggests another person is plotting or talking behind their back, it is easier to believe than to check the facts. This makes the seeds of doubt easy to plant and hard to remove. Once trust breaks down, even small problems can lead to big fights. If coworkers already mistrust each other, a missed email or a late report looks like sabotage, not a mistake. Each person feels alone, and the one in power faces less risk of being challenged. No one feels safe enough to ask questions or challenge decisions. The energy that could have built unity is wasted on defending against each other. A key part of divide and conquer is that the person in power never looks like the enemy. They act helpful, neutral, or even caring. They offer advice, sympathy, or a listening ear. While they seem to help, they are always looking for ways to keep others apart. The method works best when the group cannot see what is happening. If the target group notices, they might find common cause and push back. The long-term effect of divide and conquer is weakness. Groups that once could have joined forces now spend their energy on suspicion and blame. The person in control keeps making decisions without facing real resistance. This dynamic is found in families, businesses, schools, politics, and any setting where people gather and some seek to control. By keeping trust low, the person in power remains safe, often for a long time. A halo effect is a bias where one good quality, like beauty, charisma, or confidence, makes people believe someone is good in other ways too. This is not always logical. It happens because people use shortcuts in their minds. If they see one thing they like, they think the rest must be just as good. People use the halo effect, on purpose or by accident, to gain trust, power, or approval. Sometimes they do it to avoid hard questions or get out of trouble. The most obvious example is physical beauty. A person who is good-looking gets more attention. In a job interview, a beautiful candidate might be seen as smarter or more capable, even if their resume is not as strong as others. The interviewer may not even notice they are doing this. They focus on the positive feeling they get from the person's looks and assume other qualities match up. The same thing happens in schools, on sports teams, and in public life. Teachers often expect more from attractive students and may grade them more kindly. Coaches might give better-looking players more chances, assuming they have more talent. Charisma works in a similar way. A person with a strong, warm presence can sway a group. They speak with confidence and make people feel comfortable. When someone is charismatic, people ignore small mistakes or gaps in logic. They accept opinions as facts. The charismatic leader at work might not know the technical side of their business, but their team follows them because their charm feels like competence. No one wants to be the first to doubt someone who seems right. Celebrities use the halo effect all the time. A famous actor who looks good on screen is often asked to endorse products, speak about health, or give opinions on politics. People assume their fame means their advice is good. In truth, acting skill and health knowledge have nothing in common. The celebrity's face sells the product because of the halo effect, not because they are an expert. The halo effect can be used to avoid blame. In a classroom, a student who is well-liked and polite may get away with breaking rules. Teachers and classmates think, "He's always so nice, he wouldn't cheat." They don't look for proof. The student learns to use their reputation to their advantage. In the workplace, a manager who is outgoing and funny might be forgiven for poor results. Staff members blame the market, not the manager. The manager's charm shields them from criticism. Romantic relationships often start with the halo effect. If someone is attractive or charming, their partner overlooks flaws. They may ignore warning signs or excuses. One person might say, "He's late because he works so hard," instead of noticing a pattern. The positive quality becomes a cover for real problems. Later, when the relationship fails, the person wonders why they did not see the issues sooner. Cult leaders exploit the halo effect. Many start as charismatic speakers. They draw people in with kindness, vision, or deep eye contact. New members believe the leader is wise, honest, or even holy because they feel good when listening. The leader uses this trust to introduce new beliefs, ask for money, or demand loyalty. The followers see the first good quality and assume the rest of the leader's character is good too. The same method appears in sales. A salesperson dresses well and speaks smoothly. They are friendly and remember your name. Buyers trust the product more because they trust the person. The actual quality of the product does not matter as much as the impression left by the salesperson's charm. Many people regret purchases later, realizing they bought the feeling, not the item. The halo effect can even shield people from law enforcement. Someone with a clean appearance and polite manners is less likely to be seen as suspicious. Police, judges, and even juries fall for the bias. Well-spoken, attractive suspects get lighter sentences. People who look rough or act nervous are judged more harshly, even if the facts are the same. In hiring, the halo effect can keep out strong candidates. A manager might hire someone who went to a famous school or shares their hobby, assuming all other qualities will be just as good. This keeps workplaces from being fair or effective. Good workers get missed because the first impression was not strong. This also explains why people with similar backgrounds fill top positions. Everyone is picking others who match the good first impression they expect. A simple scenario shows how the halo effect can work. Imagine a new teacher at a school. She is young, confident, and stylish. On the first day, she brings coffee for the staff and remembers everyone's name. People decide she is smart and organized. When her class scores are only average, the principal still gives her praise. They remember her good start and assume the results will improve. Another teacher, older and quieter, does not make a strong first impression. Even if her students do well, the staff overlooks her. They did not get the same warm feeling, so they ignore the facts. Social media makes the halo effect stronger. Influencers share perfect photos, smooth videos, and kind words. Followers see the good side and assume the rest of their life is just as good. They copy habits, buy products, or repeat advice, believing they are learning from someone who has it all. When the influencer slips up, Many fans defend them or blame others because the positive image is so strong. In politics, the halo effect helps leaders rise. A candidate with an easy smile or strong voice gets support. People forgive stumbles in debates or ignore scandals. They focus on the positive trait and assume everything else is in order. This lets weak or even dangerous leaders hide behind that best quality. Critics struggle to be heard because the halo is blinding. Halo effect abuse is not always obvious. Sometimes people do it by accident. They play to their strengths and learn that life gets easier when others like them. Others use it on purpose. They dress to impress, tell stories that play to their strengths and hide flaws. They know that one strong quality can open doors, win trust, and stop criticism. The effect is strongest when people have little time or information. Under pressure, people trust their feelings and the halo wins out over facts. Some groups learn to spot the halo effect and train people to see past it. They ask for proof, double-check facts, or use checklists to stay objective. Still, the effect is hard to escape. Human minds want to use shortcuts. The easiest way is to let one good thing color the rest. This is how people use the halo effect, whether they know it or not. It shapes choices, builds trust, and protects people from criticism. Those who have the right quality learn to use it, while others are left out, no matter what the truth is. Reverse psychology is a simple but powerful way to influence people, especially those who dislike being told what to do. Instead of asking or telling someone directly, you say the opposite. You tell them not to do the thing you actually want. The idea is to trigger their need for independence, control, or rebellion. They end up doing what you wanted all along, but they think it was their own idea. This technique works well with children, teenagers, and adults who react strongly against authority. If you know someone hates being pushed or ordered around, reverse psychology becomes an easy trap. The method uses human nature. When people feel their freedom is at risk, they try to prove they have control. They do this by choosing the opposite of what they are told. Some call this a reactance response. The moment someone senses pressure, their instinct is to resist. Imagine a parent who wants their child to eat vegetables. The child refuses every time vegetables appear on the plate. The parent, instead of saying, "You must eat your carrots," says, "You probably won't want these carrots. They're not really for kids who only like sweet things." Suddenly, the child wants to prove them wrong. The carrot becomes a prize, not a punishment. The child takes a bite, just to show they are not so easily defined. Teachers use the same approach in classrooms. If students resist a lesson, the teacher might say, "This part of the book is actually too difficult for most classes. We can skip it if you think it's too much." The students feel challenged. They want to show they can handle it, so they insist on doing the work. They take pride in doing what was not expected of them. In business, managers might use reverse psychology to motivate a reluctant team. If a project seems hard and the team is dragging its feet, the manager could say, "Not every team can pull this off. It might be safer to aim lower." Team members, especially the ambitious ones, want to prove they are different. They take the challenge, working harder than if the manager had simply demanded more. The method is common in advertising too. Sometimes you see ads that say, "Don't try this product if you're afraid of standing out," or "Not everyone can handle this flavor." These messages target people who want to be seen as bold or unique. The warning is actually a dare. The buyer thinks, "I'm not like everyone else. I want to try." Reverse psychology can be used in relationships, sometimes to get attention or change behavior. If one partner feels ignored, instead of begging for time together, they say, "You're probably too busy for a date this week. It's okay, I'll make other plans." The other partner may feel a sting of pride. They want to prove they are not neglectful. Suddenly, they suggest a date themselves, thinking it was their own idea. The technique is also used in negotiations. If you want someone to accept your terms, you act as if you don't care if they walk away. You might say, "This offer probably isn't right for you. Maybe it's better if we don't make a deal." The other person, especially if they hate losing or want to feel in control, starts to argue for the deal themselves. They may agree just to avoid being seen as indecisive or unable to close. Reverse psychology often appears in stories about rebels and authority. Take the teenager with strict parents. The parents say, "Don't you dare stay out late." The teen hears this as a challenge. They stay out, partly to claim independence, partly to show they are not controlled. The parents' ban has the opposite effect. The method is especially strong with people who have oppositional or rebellious personalities. If you tell these people not to do something, they see it as a test of their freedom. The rule or warning becomes a target. They feel satisfaction breaking the rule, believing they have outsmarted the authority figure. In group settings, reverse psychology can push people to take risks or try something new. A coach might say, "Most teams wouldn't attempt this play, but you can skip it if you want." The players want to prove they are not most teams. They attempt the play, hoping to show they are different. The suggestion not to try becomes the main motivation to go ahead. Reverse psychology can even be used on yourself. People sometimes trick themselves into action by saying, "I bet I can't finish this job in an hour," then racing to prove themselves wrong. This self-challenge uses the same principle, turning a limitation into motivation. The danger of reverse psychology is that it can backfire if used too often or with people who see through the trick. If someone realizes you are using this method, they may become angry or feel manipulated. Trust can break down. In that case, the person may do the opposite just to avoid being controlled. A scenario shows how reverse psychology can play out. Imagine two friends at a party. One doesn't want to dance. The other, instead of begging, says, "You probably don't know how to dance to this song anyway." The first friend wants to prove them wrong. They get up and dance, thinking it was their own choice. The trick worked because the person wanted to prove their skill and independence. In advertising, brands sometimes use reverse psychology with slogans like, "Don't read this if you're afraid of the truth," or "Only for real fans." The message dares the viewer to keep watching or buying, using pride and curiosity as bait. In classrooms, if a teacher wants more students to participate, they might say, "Most students won't have any comments on this topic." The students, wanting to stand out, raise their hands to prove the teacher wrong. The technique works because no one wants to be grouped with the silent majority. Reverse psychology is a basic tool in social influence. It relies on pride, the need for control, and the natural resistance to authority. Used with care, it makes people act by making them feel independent. Used too often, it can breed mistrust or backfire. At its core, the reverse psychology trap is about understanding how people react when they think their choices are limited. If you want someone to do something, telling them not to do it can be the strongest way to make it happen. Faux authority is the act of pretending to have power or expertise by copying the signs of real authority. This can be how a person dresses, the way they speak, or how they act in front of others. The goal is to gain obedience, respect, or influence, even when the person has no real credentials or recognized power. Many people respond to authority figures without questioning their background. They see a uniform, a badge, a confident tone, or certain body language and assume the person deserves their trust or compliance. A common example is someone wearing a security guard uniform. The outfit includes a badge, dark pants, polished shoes, and a belt with tools. If this person stands in a doorway and tells people to stop, most will listen without asking for proof. They believe the uniform means the person has the right to give orders. The same thing happens with fake police officers. Criminals sometimes use replica badges and uniforms to pull people over or enter buildings. Drivers and residents often obey out of fear or respect, not realizing the authority is fake. The same effect appears in business. Someone may dress in a sharp suit, carry a briefcase, and use industry jargon. They walk with purpose and speak as if they are in charge. Others in the room look to them for decisions, even if the person has no official title or expertise. New employees or visitors are especially easy to fool. They do not know who is in charge, so they trust the person who acts the part. Language is another tool for creating faux authority. Using formal speech, speaking in a deep voice, and giving direct commands all mimic the way real leaders talk. Phrases like "per company policy," "as required by law," or "in my professional opinion" sound official. When someone repeats these lines with confidence, listeners may believe they know the rules or speak for someone higher up. Medical settings show another side of this tactic. People who wear white coats or scrubs are seen as experts. A person who walks through a hospital in a lab coat, carrying a clipboard, and uses medical words will get less resistance. Patients and staff rarely ask for identification. Imposters have used this to get access to drugs, equipment, or restricted areas. People want to believe someone who looks and acts like a doctor or nurse must be one. On the internet, faux authority is common. Someone may create a profile that claims they are an expert, use a title like doctor or professor, and post in an authoritative tone. They quote studies or give advice in areas where they have no training. Followers see the title, the confidence, and the technical language and accept the advice without checking. False information spreads fast because the source appears legitimate. Advertising uses faux authority in subtler ways. Actors play doctors in commercials. They wear white coats and stethoscopes and say, "I recommend this brand to my patients." Most viewers do not stop to check if the person is a real doctor. The look and the script are enough. Even small touches, glasses, a clipboard, a serious expression, can convince an audience. In classrooms, a substitute teacher may get control by acting confident and strict from the start. Students look for signs that someone is in charge. If the teacher uses strong posture, speaks clearly, and refers to school policy, students often follow instructions. If the substitute looks uncertain or nervous, students test the boundaries and may ignore directions. Cult leaders often rely on faux authority. They may dress in religious or ceremonial clothes, quote sacred texts, or claim to have special knowledge. Their words and actions mimic those of recognized spiritual leaders. Followers obey, thinking they are dealing with a true authority. The leader uses this trust to gain money, loyalty, or even control over people's lives. Faux authority is common in scams. A caller might claim to be from the IRS, using a stern tone and official-sounding phrases. They threaten fines or jail time if the target does not comply. Many people panic and follow instructions, even sending money, because the caller sounds so official. The scammer relies on the target's fear of authority and their reluctance to question someone who acts the part. This approach can also show up in emergencies. During a fire or disaster, someone who takes charge, raises their voice, and gives clear instructions can quickly gain control of a crowd. People want a leader in moments of chaos. They follow the person who looks and acts like they know what to do, even if that person has no special skills or right to lead. Fake credentials also play a role. Someone might print a business card with an impressive title or put up a website listing fake degrees. In meetings, they refer to their years of experience or drop the names of real organizations. Most people do not take time to check the facts. They trust what is presented on the surface. Sometimes, faux authority is used to get better service or special treatment. A customer might walk into a restaurant dressed in a suit, use a serious tone, and say they are conducting an official review. Staff members respond with extra care, thinking the person has the power to affect their job. In reality, the reviewer is just a customer who knows how to act important. In social situations, people use faux authority to gain respect or settle disputes. Someone may speak first, talk the loudest, or act as a mediator even when no one asks them to. Others fall in line, assuming the person knows best. Group dynamics often reward the person who seems most confident, not the one with the most knowledge. Children pick up on these cues early. They notice which adults use firm voices, stand tall, or use phrases like, "because I said so." They are more likely to obey these adults than someone who hesitates or explains too much. Teenagers test faux authority by copying the dress and speech of leaders in their group to get attention or avoid bullying. In the world of technology, people use faux authority by adopting the language and style of experts. Hackers may pose as IT support, sending emails with company logos and urgent requests. Employees respond, thinking the message comes from a real authority. The hacker gains access to sensitive information by mimicking the look and language of trusted staff. Faux authority works because people are trained from a young age to respect certain signals: uniforms, badges, titles, confident speech, and strong posture. These signals trigger automatic responses. Most people do not want to challenge someone who looks or sounds official. They follow instructions, give information, or change their behavior without stopping to question if the authority is real. This tactic can be simple or elaborate. Sometimes all it takes is a confident tone and the right outfit. Other times, people build fake resumes, buy props, or create entire organizations to appear more credible. The effect is strongest when people are unsure, in a hurry, or under stress. When faced with someone who seems in charge, many will obey first and ask questions later. This is why faux authority remains a powerful tool for those who know how to use it. Guilt is a feeling that arises when someone believes they have done wrong or failed to meet another's expectations. People often use guilt as a tool to get others to comply. It's a quiet but strong form of control. Instead of using threats, anger, or open force, the person who wants compliance relies on making the other person feel responsible, indebted, or ungrateful. Guilt shifts the focus away from the request itself and makes the target worry about what they owe, how they appear, or whether they are a good person. The most basic form of this is the phrase, "after all I've done for you." The person says this to remind someone of past sacrifices, favors, or help. It may come from a parent, partner, friend, or boss. The unspoken message is clear. If you do not comply, you are ungrateful or even selfish. This pushes the target to give in, not because the request is fair or wanted, but to avoid feeling like a bad person. Family members often use guilt to get their way. A parent may say, "I worked so hard to give you a good life, and now you won't help me with this one thing?" The child feels a knot in their stomach. They remember the times their parent did something for them. Even if the request is large, unfair, or comes at a bad time, the child feels trapped. To say no would be to deny their parents' sacrifice. The guilt becomes stronger than their own needs or wishes. Partners use guilt in relationships too. One partner might say, "If you really loved me, you would do this for me." This sentence is not a direct command. It's a pressure tactic. It ties love and loyalty to compliance. The target does not want to be seen as cold or uncaring, so they agree. Over time, this type of guilt trip can build up resentment. Still, it works in the moment because people are wired to want acceptance and connection, not conflict. Workplaces are not immune to guilt-based compliance. A boss might say, "I stayed late last night to finish your part of the project. Can you come in on the weekend?" The employee knows they are not required to come in, but the guilt of the boss's sacrifice hangs in the air. The employee gives up their free time not for extra pay or passion, but to avoid letting the boss down or appearing lazy in comparison. Friendships also use guilt as a lever. One friend may say, "I always listen to your problems, but you're never there when I need you." This statement is loaded. It paints one friend as caring and the other as neglectful. The accused friend feels guilt, even if the charge is not fair or true. They might rush to support the friend or agree to an unwanted plan just to restore balance and avoid feeling like a bad friend. Parents use more subtle forms with children. A mother might sigh and say, "I guess I'll go to your game alone, since no one else wants to come." The child hears the disappointment and feels guilty. They might drop other plans to make the parent happy. The guilt is not about the event itself, but about not wanting to disappoint or hurt someone they care about. Some people use guilt to keep favors coming. Imagine someone who lends money, helps with chores, or gives rides, but keeps track of every good deed. When they want something, they say, "Remember all those times I helped you move? Now I need you to do this for me." The other person feels they owe a debt, even if the debt was never agreed to. To say no is to seem ungrateful or selfish, so they comply. Guilt also appears in group settings. In a volunteer organization, a leader may say, "Only a few of us are doing all the work, and the rest seem not to care." Members of the group feel singled out. They want to be seen as part of the group and to do their share, so they agree to extra tasks. The leader may not ask directly, but the guilt of being labeled lazy or uncaring gets people to say yes. Religion sometimes uses guilt for compliance. Leaders may remind followers of sacrifices made by others or tie faith to obedience. After all that has been given to you, how can you refuse this small request? This makes the follower feel their refusal is not just about the act, but about their entire character or faith. A scenario shows how guilt works in practice. Imagine a college student whose roommate often borrows their car. The roommate forgets to fill the tank or clean up, but always ends requests with, "You know I would do anything for you if you needed it." The student feels guilt. They do not want to question the friendship or seem stingy, so they keep saying yes, even as frustration grows. Guilt can be layered. A parent says, "If you don't visit this weekend, your grandmother will be so disappointed." Now the guilt is doubled. One for the parent, one for the grandmother. The child feels pressure from two directions. The real issue, whether a visit is possible or needed, gets lost in the wave of guilt. Guilt trips work best on people who want to please others or avoid conflict. These people are sensitive to criticism or the idea they might hurt someone. The person using guilt learns to spot this trait and target it. They know what words will work. Sometimes they add, "I guess I'm just not important to you," or "I won't bother you again." The target rushes to fix the situation, not because they want to, but to erase the discomfort. Some guilt is implied. A boss who does not ask directly, but sighs or mentions their own hard work, plants the idea, "Look how much I do, shouldn't you do more?" This unspoken guilt is just as strong as words. Guilt is used in advertising as well. A charity ad might show a sad child and say, "While you enjoy dinner, some children have nothing. Will you help?" The ad does not threaten or demand. It makes the viewer feel guilt for their comfort. The urge to comply, donate, sign up, take action, comes from wanting to remove the guilt. Using guilt to get compliance is effective because people want to feel good about themselves and their relationships. The quickest way to erase guilt is to give in. The person asking never has to force, argue, or explain. They simply plant the seed and wait for the target to act, trapped by their own wish to be good, loyal, or grateful. Triangulation is a method of control where someone brings a third party into a situation to affect how others feel or act. The main person does not solve issues directly. Instead, they use another person as a tool or as leverage. The third party might be real, imagined, or even just mentioned in conversation. This tactic creates jealousy, insecurity, or confusion in the target. It shifts the balance of power, making the original relationship unstable and easier to control. In personal relationships, triangulation often happens between partners. One partner might mention an ex or a friend in a way that stirs jealousy. For example, after an argument, one might say, "At least my friend understands me. Maybe I should spend more time with them." The message is clear. You are not enough. Someone else could replace you. The partner on the receiving end feels anxious, threatened, or desperate to win back approval. This anxiety makes them more willing to please or change their behavior. The person using triangulation gains power without having to ask for it outright. Parents can use triangulation between siblings. A mother might tell one child, "Your brother always helps with chores. Why can't you be more like him?" The goal is not just to motivate, but to set the siblings against each other. The child who is criticized feels jealous or resentful. The good child may feel pressure to keep their favored status. The parent remains at the center, controlling both children by managing their rivalry. The siblings compete for approval instead of joining forces. The parent never has to explain their actions or answer for favoritism. In workplaces, managers may use triangulation to keep employees off balance. If two employees do similar jobs, the manager might praise one in front of the other. "I wish everyone worked as hard as Jane." At review time, the manager may mention how the other person seems to be taking on extra work. This stirs up competition. Each employee becomes suspicious of the other, instead of questioning the manager's decisions or practices. The boss remains in control, able to shift blame and avoid direct conflict. Triangulation also works by using outside opinions to manipulate. Triangulation is a method of control where someone brings a third party into a situation to affect how others feel or act. The main person does not solve issues directly. Instead, they use another person as a tool or as leverage. The third party might be real, imagined, or even just mentioned in conversation. This tactic creates jealousy, insecurity, or confusion in the target. It shifts the balance of power, making the original relationship unstable and easier to control. In personal relationships, triangulation often happens between partners. One partner might mention an ex or a friend in a way that stirs jealousy. For example, after an argument, one might say, "At least my friend understands me. Maybe I should spend more time with them." The message is clear. You are not enough. Someone else could replace you. The partner on the receiving end feels anxious, threatened, or desperate to win back approval. This anxiety makes them more willing to please or change their behavior. The person using triangulation gains power without having to ask for it outright. Parents can use triangulation between siblings. A mother might tell one child, "Your brother always helps with chores. Why can't you be more like him?" The goal is not just to motivate, but to set the siblings against each other. The child who is criticized feels jealous or resentful. The good child may feel pressure to keep their favored status. The parent remains at the center, controlling both children by managing their rivalry. The siblings compete for approval instead of joining forces. The parent never has to explain their actions or answer for favoritism. In workplaces, managers may use triangulation to keep employees off balance. If two employees do similar jobs, the manager might praise one in front of the other. "I wish everyone worked as hard as Jane." At review time, the manager may mention how the other person seems to be taking on extra work. This stirs up competition. Each employee becomes suspicious of the other, instead of questioning the manager's decisions or practices. The boss remains in control, able to shift blame and avoid direct conflict. Triangulation also works by using outside opinions to manipulate. In an argument, someone might say, Everyone else thinks you're overreacting, or my friends agree with me about this. The third party is not present to confirm or deny the statement. Still, their supposed agreement adds weight to the speaker's position. The target feels isolated, as if their feelings or views are not just different, but wrong in the eyes of a group. The pressure to conform grows, and the original person gets their way without open confrontation. Sometimes the third party is an authority figure. In a school, a teacher might say, "The principal is not happy with your performance," even if they have never spoken to the principal about the student. The teacher shifts blame to someone higher up, making the student less likely to argue. In the workplace, a manager might say, "Corporate wants us to change this policy," without any proof. The staff feel powerless, forced to obey someone who is not even present. Romantic partners often use social media for triangulation. Posting photos with another person, talking about outings with friends, or even mentioning new people can stir up jealousy. The goal is not always open cheating. Sometimes it is enough to make the partner worry about losing their place. This insecurity makes the person more attentive, eager to please, or less likely to bring up their own needs. The person using triangulation keeps their partner guessing and focused on the competition, not the real problems in the relationship. In friendships, triangulation can cause lasting damage. Imagine three friends, Alex, Sam, and Casey. Alex feels closer to Sam, so they talk privately about Casey's faults. Then, Alex tells Casey what Sam supposedly said about them. Now both Sam and Casey feel insecure about their place in the group. They may try to get closer to Alex or become suspicious of each other. Alex, the one who created the confusion, stays in the strongest position. This is common in groups where one person wants to remain at the center, controlling the flow of information. Parents sometimes use triangulation to influence children's behavior after a divorce. One parent may say, "Your mother says I never spend time with you. Is that true?" Or, "Your father thinks I am too strict." The child is pulled into adult problems and made to choose sides. This damages the child's trust in both parents and can create guilt, confusion, or loyalty conflicts. Flooding is a way of gaining control by overwhelming someone with more than they can process. It happens when you give a person too much information, too many tasks, or strong emotions all at once. The target cannot keep up, so they stop thinking clearly. They might freeze, become anxious, or give up trying to understand what is happening. This surrender lets the person doing the flooding take over decision-making, push through changes, or get agreement without real resistance. Information flooding is common in business, politics, and even personal life. One example is in a workplace meeting. Imagine a boss who wants a policy change but expects pushback from the team. Instead of a simple explanation, the boss brings a thick packet of charts, statistics, and jargon-heavy reports. They talk for a long time, jumping from topic to topic, using technical terms that most people do not know. Team members try to follow along but lose track after a few minutes. By the time questions are allowed, most are too tired or confused to object. The boss gets a quiet nod of agreement, not because the team supports the plan, but because they are overwhelmed and want the meeting to end. A variation is the legal document dump. In a lawsuit, one side may bury the other in thousands of pages of emails, memos, and reports, most of which are irrelevant. The purpose is not to inform, but to flood the opposing lawyers with so much material that they miss what really matters. The lawyers spend their time sorting through the pile and have less energy for a real defense. Flooding can happen with tasks as well. A manager might assign new duties to an employee each week, piling them up faster than the worker can finish the old ones. If the employee tries to push back, the manager acts surprised. "I thought you were able to handle this much. Let me know if you can't keep up." The worker feels ashamed or anxious, tries harder, and gets even more behind. The boss gains leverage. They can threaten poor reviews, withhold raises, or push for resignations, knowing the employee cannot meet all the demands. In families or relationships, Flooding is used to confuse or exhaust someone emotionally. A partner might start several arguments at once, bring up past problems, demand explanations, and criticize new issues, all in the space of one conversation. The other person feels like they are being hit from all sides. They try to defend themselves on one point, but a new issue appears. Soon, they shut down. Flooding is a way of gaining control by overwhelming someone with more than they can process. It happens when you give a person too much information, too many tasks, or strong emotions all at once. The target cannot keep up, so they stop thinking clearly. They might freeze, become anxious, or give up trying to understand what is happening. This surrender lets the person doing the flooding take over decision-making, push through changes, or get agreement without real resistance. Information flooding is common in business, politics, and even personal life. One example is in a workplace meeting. Imagine a boss who wants a policy change but expects pushback from the team. Instead of a simple explanation, the boss brings a thick packet of charts, statistics, and jargon-heavy reports. They talk for a long time, jumping from topic to topic, using technical terms that most people do not know. Team members try to follow along but lose track after a few minutes. By the time questions are allowed, most are too tired or confused to object. The boss gets a quiet nod of agreement, not because the team supports the plan, but because they are overwhelmed and want the meeting to end. A variation is the legal document dump. In a lawsuit, one side may bury the other in thousands of pages of emails, memos, and reports, most of which are irrelevant. The purpose is not to inform, but to flood the opposing lawyers with so much material that they miss what really matters. The lawyers spend their time sorting through the pile and have less energy for a real defense. Flooding can happen with tasks as well. A manager might assign new duties to an employee each week, piling them up faster than the worker can finish the old ones. If the employee tries to push back, the manager acts surprised. "I thought you were able to handle this much. Let me know if you can't keep up." The worker feels ashamed or anxious, tries harder, and gets even more behind. The boss gains leverage. They can threaten poor reviews, withhold raises, or push for resignations, knowing the employee cannot meet all the demands. In families or relationships, flooding is used to confuse or exhaust someone emotionally. A partner might start several arguments at once, bring up past problems, demand explanations, and criticize new issues, all in the space of one conversation. The other person feels like they are being hit from all sides. They try to defend themselves on one point, but a new issue appears. Soon, they shut down. They stop answering, apologize, or agree to anything just to end the emotional attack. The person flooding the conversation can then set the terms, decide the outcome, or leave the target feeling powerless. Flooding is also a tactic in cults and controlling groups. New members arrive and face a packed schedule, meetings, rituals, lessons, and group events. Leaders share beliefs, stories, and rules at a fast pace, not giving time to reflect or question. The new recruit is so busy and tired that they cannot think straight. The sense of overwhelm becomes normal. When the leader asks for a big commitment, money, time, loyalty, the member is too drained to argue. The pressure to fit in and avoid conflict is stronger than the urge to resist. A similar approach is used in advertising and politics. During a crisis, leaders might release many statements, updates, and press conferences in a short time. They mix important facts with rumors, technical language, and emotional appeals. The public feels overwhelmed. People cannot tell what is true, what is urgent, or what they should do. Some give up on following the news. Relying on the loudest voice or the first clear answer, the person in charge can then guide public opinion by controlling what information gets through after the initial flood. Flooding is not only about the volume of information or tasks, but also about speed. When you do not let someone pause, ask questions, or catch up, you increase the sense of chaos. In a sales pitch, for example, the seller may rattle off features, show videos, and bring up limited-time offers in quick succession. The buyer gets lost. Instead of making an informed decision, they sign the contract to escape the pressure. The effect of flooding is strongest on people who want to be thorough, who are afraid of missing something, or who feel responsible for understanding everything. They work harder to keep up, but the flood keeps coming. Soon, stress and confusion turn into helplessness. At this point, a flooded person is ready to accept outside direction, give up